Welcome to the CLAT 2024 paper analysis. We will start off with the section that you guys have feared the most in the last 2 years, 1 year, 6 months of your preparation, which is none other than general knowledge and current affairs. Now, while it seemed very easy, there were certain tricky questions, and yes, of course, since the paper is relatively easy as compared to the last year, we can expect a greater score, a higher score, and we will get down to, what are the kind of scores that will get us to the top 3 NLUs and maybe the top 10 in some time. But before that, I'd like to first, put your minds towards this is also for other aspirants who are going to, write the CLAT exam possibly in the next year. You see, last year, if you look at the GK portion, it was extremely difficult for the students, and this year it is easy. So can we derive a pattern out of it? Well, you see, the year before that, which is 2022 or 2021 test takers, it was, some years GK comes out to be a little easier than the rest of the years. Now, in this particular year, you see, there were certain topics which were so relevant that you and I and Sir and, all of your GK mentors have sort of done it entirely. There has been depth in all of our discussions. So the next year CLAT test takers, if we feel that GK is something which is going to be very, very easy and we don't really have to focus on it at all, kindly don't do that, right? So that is my first advice for you. And the rest of it, of course, we'll start with the discussion of the paper. I would like Shrikant sir also to say a few words about the examination.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So, welcome everyone to CLAT Possible. Guys, I hope जितनी भी आप लोगों ने effort मारे हैं, जितना भी आप लोगों ने prepare किया है, that was definitely 100%. आज के इस पेपर को देख करके एक चीज़ हम सबको समझ में आ जानी चाहिए, ये पेपर जो relevant topics हैं, उनके around ही revolve करता है. During all our classes हम लोगों ने एक चीज़ पे बहुत focus किया था कि things that are happening. लास्ट ईयर के पेपर से अगर हम लोग कंपेयर करते हैं, पिछले साल भी टॉपिक्स वही पूछे गए थे जो लगातार न्यूज़ में थे. इस साल के अगर आप पेपर को देखेंगे तो आपके पास चाहे वो चंद्रयान हो गया, चाहे वो इजराइल हमास कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो गया, चाहे वो G20 हो गया, एंड ऑल दीज टॉपिक्स हैव बीन टेकन बाय ऑल योर मेंटर्स. प्रियंका मैम ने, मैंने और भी बाकी जो आपके फैकल्टीज़ हैं, लगातार इन टॉपिक्स को हम लोग लेते आए हैं. टॉकिंग अबाउट द डिफ़िकल्टी ऑफ द पेपर, मैं ये कहूँगा कि ये पेपर इजी से मॉडरेट लेवल के बीच में था. अब एक एक करके हम लोग हर एक टॉपिक जो यहाँ पे पूछा गया, हर एक कॉम्प्रिहेंशन, उसका डिस्कशन करेंगे मैं और प्रियंका मैम. तो हम लोग स्टार्ट करते हैं पहला टॉपिक के साथ, जिसका नाम है और जो कि कंटेक्स्ट में है स्पेस साइंसेस के. यहाँ पर उस स्पीच के बारे में मेंशन किया गया है जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने हमारे चंद्रयान की सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग के बाद हमारे साइंटिस्ट्स को जब वो एड्रेस कर रहे थे, तब उसी से यहाँ से ये पार्ट्स उठाए हुए हैं. यहाँ पे एक क्वेश्चन इससे भी पूछा गया है, कई सारे लोगों ने इसका आंसर अलग अलग तरीके से दे करके रखा हुआ है. मेरा मानना ये था कि यू शुड हैव रेड द पैराग्राफ. अगर आप पहले पैराग्राफ की लास्ट लाइन पे अगर आप जाएंगे तो वहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है, टुडे यू हैव टेकन मेक इन इंडिया टू मून. यू हैव टेकन मेक इन इंडिया टू मून, यानी कि एक सिंपल सी बात जिसको यहाँ पे प्राइम मिनिस्टर एड्रेस कर रहे थे, वो हमारे स्पेस साइंटिस्ट, जो हमारे इसरो के साइंटिस्ट हैं, उनके कंटेक्स्ट में ये बात हो रही थी. टॉकिंग अबाउट द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, इन व्हाट डिड इंडिया बिकम द 4th कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड. आपकी मैगजीन्स में, आपके क्लासरूम डिस्कशंस में लगातार हम लोगों ने इस पे बात करी है. आप लोगों ने न्यूज़ में बहुत देखा होगा कि लैंडिंग अ स्पेसक्राफ्ट ऑन द मून. अगर यहाँ पर आपके पास एक और बेहतर ऑप्शन होता, it became the first country to land on the South Pole and 4th country overall to land on the surface of moon. तो यहाँ पर आपका second option that says landing a spacecraft on the moon is the right answer. Coming on to the second question, what is the role of Pragyan? Again, अगर आपने comprehension को पढ़ा है, second paragraph में अगर आप third line पे जाएंगे तो वहाँ पे clearly mention किया है, our Pragyan is continuously leaving its footprints on the moon. आप सीधे से अपने ऑप्शंस को आप देखिए और यहाँ से आप अपना पहला ऑप्शन टू मूव अराउंड द मून लीविंग फुटप्रिंट्स, ये आपका अप्रोप्रिएट आंसर यहाँ पर एकदम बनता है. तीसरा, अगेन इट वाज
टू click pictures from different cameras. So not only to move, but also to take photographs.
Yes, ma'am, exactly. तीसरा क्वेश्चन है आपका, नेम वन इंस्टीट्यूशन दैट प्लेड अ मेजर रोल इन ब्रिंगिंग इंडिया टू द फोरफ्रंट. यहां पर आप सिर्फ ऑप्शंस देखिए, आपको अपने आप समझ में आ जाएगा. जब ये स्पीच दी गई थी प्राइम मिनिस्टर द्वारा, तो उस स्पीच में बार बार इसी चीज को बोला गया था कि इट वॉज नॉट पॉसिबल विदाउट द एफर्ट्स ऑफ आवर साइंटिस्ट. हमारे साइंटिस्ट जो दिन रात लगे हुए थे, आने वाले मिशंस के लिए भी उनको कांग्रेचुलेट किया गया. और साथ ही साथ यहां पर इसका करेक्ट आंसर आपका इसरो, इंडियन स्पेस रिसर्च ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, दैट इज ऑप्शन नंबर सी. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन की अगर हम लोग बात करते हैं, व्हाट इज द नेम ऑफ द मून लैंडर एंड रोवर. यहां पे आपको जब हम लोगों ने क्लासेस में पढ़ाया है चंद्रयान 2 और चंद्रयान 3, आफ्टर द डिबैकल ऑफ चंद्रयान 2, एक चीज ये बार बार सामने आई कि भाई जो हमारा लैंडर और रोवर जो चंद्रयान 2 में कोशिश की गई थी, विच एक्चुअली फेल्ड बाय ऑलमोस्ट 2.1 किलोमीटर्स, वही रोवर का नाम और वही लैंडर का नाम यहां पे हमारे साइंटिस्ट ने सोचा. तो जो हमारा मून लैंडर था उसका नाम था विक्रम, ऑन द नेम ऑफ our eminent space scientist Vikram Sarabhai, also known as the father of Indian space sciences. और दूसरा नाम यहाँ पे था प्रज्ञान. प्रज्ञान अगर संस्कृत में इस शब्द के बारे में बात करें तो इसका मतलब होता है wisdom. So first option is your right answer. Then whom did the prime minister address this to. ये जो कॉम्प्रिहेंशन आपको दिया हुआ है, ये बोला जा रहा है, पूछा जा रहा है आपसे कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर उस टाइम पे किसको एड्रेस कर रहे थे. मैंने अपने डिस्कशन की शुरुआत में ही कहा कि ये पूरा का पूरा जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर का स्पीच था, इट वाज डेडिकेटेड टू आवर साइंटिस्ट इन इसरो. सो फोर्थ ऑप्शन आपका, टू द साइंटिस्ट ऑफ इसरो, इज द राइट आंसर. लास्ट क्वेश्चन यहां पे बोल रहा है, व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग कंट्रीज इन द वर्ल्ड हैड टच्ड द सरफेस ऑफ द मून. सम ऑफ यू have committed a silly mistake here, और आप लोगों को ध्यान रखना चाहिए था, रशिया और यूएसएसआर के बीच में कई सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने ये बेसिक ब्लंडर किया है. यहां पर पहला कंट्री था यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका. अपोलो सीरीज के बारे में हम लोगों ने ऑलरेडी पढ़ा भी है. देन यू हैव यूएसएसआर. सी द डिसइंटीग्रेशन हैपेंड ईयर्स लेटर. तीसरा कंट्री चाइना, और चौथा कंट्री है आपका इंडिया. और इंडिया इसीलिए हमने बोला इट हैज बिकम द फोर्थ कंट्री इन द वर्ल्ड टू have a soft landing on the surface of moon. So this was with respect to the first comprehension. Now over to you, Priyanka ma'am, for the next passage.
All right, so before I go ahead with the discussion of the next passage, there is something that I'd like to talk to you guys about, and I'm sure the CLAT aspirants and the test takers have realized this too, that gone are the days that we don't read the GK passages and we directly go on to the questions. Now, so we have to ensure that we read the passage very, very properly. And in fact, there was a little joke that used to play around that, ma'am, हम लोगों के ये वाले mock में ये वाला answer तो passage में था. So you see, firstly, I used to keep telling you that, you know, the CLAT consortium in the last year had put out a sample question wherein there was a question with respect to a painting and some tomato juice or something was thrown on it. And the name of the painting was asked, and the name of the painting was also there in the passage, right? And so now what we have to understand is, yes, you are going to become prospective lawyers, and more than anything else, the reasoning aspect is also very, very important, right? So again, we can't just focus on rote learning for general knowledge anymore. We need to understand why does a certain thing happen. We need to get down to the nitty-gritties of it, and I think that makes our paper even more interesting for that matter, because, you know, it's no longer just factual knowledge, it is also about concepts.
And ma'am, जो current affairs में जो awareness की बात करते हैं, this paper was all about awareness.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will start off with the next one. This is to do with the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. While most of you understood the relevance of it, there were certain students who asked me, ma'am, ये वाला question क्यों आ गया? Right? So of course, बच्चे, we've done India-Canada relationships. We've spoken about a certain section of population who are of a separationist mentality. And then if you remember, every time we've started discussing about the separationist movement in a certain group in Punjab, I've always and only started off with the concept of Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Thereafter, we did Government of India Act 1919, Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, where I said that, you know, separate electorate to the Sikh community was, as per my humble opinion, the very first time that you see a distinct identity was even ingrained in the minds of certain population. So yes, of course, you know, Jallianwala Bagh massacre for that matter becomes very, very important, right?
And also, ma'am, in the textbooks that we have provided to the students,
yes,
we have mentioned it very clearly.
Right.
Not just ma'am, as ma'am mentioned 1919 Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. So the first concept that was introduced was separate electorates for the Sikhs. Second one was the idea of diarchy was also introduced.
Correct.
Ma'am.
Yeah. And that's exactly what is happening right now. Of course, I come from the state of Punjab, so it is not happening everywhere. But there are certain sections of the population that are not really in India who are doing that, and we see them everywhere. So let's start off with this one. This particular thing is with respect to General Dyer, right? And so the entire thing is by Colonel Wedgwood. He's a member of Parliament and he's speaking in the British Parliament. And so the first question is, which incident is being spoken of over here? I mean, it is very, very simple. Actually, see, I'll tell you what, it was Baisakhi also. But they're talking about the massacre here, so we will go on to the to option B, of course, because that's a better option there. Let's go on to the next one. Why did General Dyer order to fire on the crowd? Says to bring the crowd under control. बहुत बच्चों ने ये लिखा है, right? Under control का मतलब बेटा बहुत simple सी बात है. He did not want to bring them under control. He wanted to enforce a law that was already passed on Punjab at that time, and that was the martial law. If he just wanted to control the law, he would have maybe done a lathi charge, right? He wouldn't have just said start killing people, right? So he wanted to enforce the martial law. I mean, of course, you can also go to option C that says to teach the crowd a lesson, which is exactly what he said when the committee asked him that why did you take such a drastic step? But well, to teach the crowd a lesson again can be done in plenty of other ways. Put the entire crowd behind the bars, but you don't really start shooting them, right? So you should go for option D over there. Let's go on to the next one. In the light of the above passage, what was the intention of the speaker? So if you can read all of this, they are not, of course, they are not praising General Dyer by any stretch of imagination. To expose the deeds of General Dyer, if you read the entire passage, it is not really talking about how General Dyer was a monster. It is more about, you know, what was happening to the people who were there at that time. You know, so stuff such as men were lying there for 2 days, dying of thirst, eating the ground, bleeding to death, nobody to look after them. So it is to get sympathy for the Indians who died at that time. So C should be the answer there. All of the above cannot possibly be an answer because A is absolutely eliminated there. The next one is, after the incident, who helped the injured and the dying people? It is actually, it was some people who lived nearby. I don't know, शहीद उधम सिंह मूवी अगर आपने देखी है तो आपने वो चीज़ देखी होगी, शायद आपने पढ़ा होगा, एनसीईआरटीज़ में भी होता ही है इसके बारे में, और हमारी किताबों में भी हमने लिखा हुआ है जो हमारी स्टैटिक बुक्स है ऑन आवर एलएमएस, राइट? सो दैट इज आल्सो समथिंग व्हिच इज सिंपल. And it was a court hearing where Shahid Udham Singh went and he killed not the guy who had put out the order, but actually the governor.
Actually, the governor.
Yeah. So then, what would be the feelings of the Indian children who are brought up to this spot? I feel this is such an interesting question, right? So, friendliness to the British rule, again, completely nullified. So, you either have a sense of helplessness or you have bitterness about the British rule. Wherein I would go for option B and not option C, because I would feel a sense of helplessness when somebody in front of me is in that dire state and I'm not able to do anything for that particular person. This has happened in the past. I couldn't possibly do anything for these people. So what I feel at that time is a sense of bitterness with respect to the British rule. In fact, they have also mentioned over here the Cawnpore well. Right, so they are also talking about Nana Sahib and the mutiny, and you know all the Indians who were massacred there.
The siege of Cawnpore, ma'am.
Correct.
1957 rebellion.
Correct. So a lot of Indians were massacred there also. So yeah, so B should be the answer there. Let's go ahead. What was the full name of General Dyer? चलो at least खुश होना चाहिए, spelling नहीं पूछा है, right? हाँ, तो at least सवाल ये पूछा है. So C is the answer. I hope everyone knows this. Yes, yeah, so that is that about this particular passage. The next is Israel Hamas. So we'll take it one by one. Again, you know, Israel Hamas was taken up very, very extensively on YouTube, also in our sessions, right? Over and over again. You could also talk a little bit about it. Yeah, Hanji, bataiye.
So, guys, jab 7th October ko, when the Hamas terrorists they went inside Israel, uske baad जो पूरा का पूरा इशू स्टार्ट हुआ है, दिस पैसेज इज टॉकिंग इंटायरली अबाउट दिस. यहाँ पे आपको एक एक ऑप्शन को बहुत केयरफुली पढ़ना था. सी ऑप्शंस वरंट दैट सिंपल कि आपने पढ़ा और आपने मार्क कर दिया. कुछ ऑप्शंस में आपको थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन था. इससे पहला वाला ही जो क्वेश्चन है, यहाँ पे मेनी पीपल वर ऑफ द आइडिया that they went for option number A to retaliate against Israeli settler violence against Palestinians. But the correct answer, according to us, would be to seek an end to the Gaza Strip blockade. Why? Because Hamas terrorist group is active in the Gaza region. और वहीं को लेकर, उसी जगह को लेकर के उनके के सारे अपने इश्यूज थे, अपने क्लेम्स थे. और फाइनली ये हम लोगों ने देखा 7 अक्टूबर को होते हुए कि भाई वी विल कम एंड वी विल टेक द रिवेंज. तो दैट्स हाउ दिस thing was happened, and we have already discussed the history of Israel, Hamas, the Intifada, first Intifada, second Intifada. Hamas is a very prominent player whenever it comes to Israel-Palestine politics or Israel-Palestine relations.
Right. So also you can eliminate the options very easily. Desecration of the Western Wall has happened long time back, है ना? And construction of Palestinian settlement in the West Bank, boss Gaza Strip की बात हो रही है, West Bank तो होगा नहीं. Right. So A and D के बारे में बात करें तो to retaliate against the Israeli settler violence against Palestinians. In fact, they were talking about they were having peace talks. You know, some also say that chalo, let's not get political over here, but the point is the answer would be to seek an end to the Gaza Strip blockade. Let's go on to the next one. Maybe you can take this up.
Okay, so what was the reaction of the international community to the killing of Israeli civilians? So guys, यहाँ पे आपको अगर ये आंसर नहीं भी पता है, आप सिर्फ ऑप्शंस से एलिमिनेट कर सकते हैं. पहले ऑप्शन को अगर हम लोग बात करते हैं, कंडेम्ड एज टेररिज्म बाय 44 कंट्रीज इंक्लूडिंग इंडिया. इंडिया ने भी इसको कंडेम किया था, इस एक्शन को, जिसके बाद हम लोगों ने देखा इजरायली प्राइम मिनिस्टर, इजरायली प्रेसिडेंट ने अप्रिशिएट किया इंडिया के स्टैंड को. तो पहला वाला इज द मोस्ट अप्रोप्रिएट दैट वी कैन सी. एक बार बाकियों को भी देख लेते हैं. इग्नोर्ड बाय मोस्ट ऑफ द कंट्रीज. बेटा जब सामने आया था, व्हेन दिस इवेंट केम सॉ द लाइट, जब ये न्यूज़ में पढ़ा लोगों ने, तो इनिशियली इट वाज 700 to 800 पीपल, बट धीरे धीरे जो डेथ टोल था वो अप टू 1500 लोगों तक पहुंचा. तो ऐसा इवेंट जहां पर एक टेररिस्ट एक्टिविटी से 1500 लोग मारे जाएं, डेफिनेटली यू कैन नॉट इग्नोर सच इवेंट्स. सपोर्टेड बाय द यूनाइटेड नेशंस. आप एक बात बताइए, ऐसे इवेंट को यूनाइटेड नेशंस कैसे सपोर्ट कर सकता है? चौथा ऑप्शन आपको दे करके रखा हुआ है, प्रेज्ड एज अ नेसेसरी मेजर बाय 10 कंट्रीज. नहीं, नो कंट्री विल डू दिस थिंग अंटिल अनलेस वुड डिक्लेयर टेररिस्ट स्टेट. सो यहाँ पे एक ही ऑप्शन आपका,
करेक्ट. मतलब अनलेस, मतलब इम्प्लाइडली कर सकते हैं, लेकिन ऑन द फेस ऑफ इट एक्सप्लिसिटली कोई नहीं बोलेगा वाओ यू हैव डन सच अ ग्रेट वॉर.
ये सुसाइड हो जाएगा किसी भी कंट्री के लिए
कि वाओ यू आर किलिंग सो मेनी पीपल, वी आर प्रेजिंग यू. सो इट्स अ रिलेटिवली इजी क्वेश्चन. लेट्स गो ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन. Which of the following is not true about the historical context of the Israel-Hamas conflict? Right, so अब सबसे पहले let's go on to the A portion. The Palestinian refugees started settling under the Ottomans. It was quite the opposite, right? So that is not there. Hamas emerged during the first Intifada in the late 1980s, which is fine. That is absolutely correct because that happened 1987, 1986.
एक चीज और भी आ सकती है मैम, जब हम लोग पढ़ाते हैं इसके बारे में, तो we often talk about the Munich massacre that happened in Munich Olympic Games 1972. तो उस टाइम पे जो prominent players थे मैम, in the ये जो पूरा इनका इशू चल रहा था उस टाइम पे, it was PLO and later on under यासिर अराफात it was Fateh. हमास, ये आपका ओरिजिन ही इसका जो था, that was during the first intifada in the late 1980s.
Correct.
जी.
Correct. So yeah, so what would you go for then?
Ma'am, the first option is the like you
absolutely incorrect. So Hamas was formerly known as Islamic Resistance Movement is also correct.
बिल्कुल.
First Intifada was a Palestinian uprising against Israeli rule. Jibalia refugee camp, I think it was, if I'm pronouncing it
Yes, ma'am.
correctly,
Jibalia.
that जब सबसे पहली चीज़ ये हुई थी, चलो ठीक है, ये भी easy है, ये किया है हम लोगों ने. What has been the response of the Israeli military to the Hamas-led attack? So they're playing a little on UPSC, and I love that, right? The only and everything that they're
Yes.
asking, that is awesome. It makes the entire general knowledge section super interesting even to teach, right? So conducted an aerial bombardment campaign only
Yes.
nullifies
This
it.
was the catch here.
Yeah. Asked for international intervention. Israel.
Israel. हो नहीं सकता.
Yeah. Captured and imprisoned the militants responsible. I mean, that is fine, but before that they declared
Yes,
a state of
exactly,
war.
ma'am. पहला they declared a state of
जी,
war and launched a
जी,
ground invasion.
जी.
जी.
ठीक है. फिर what is the current hostilities known as in the Gaza-Israel conflict?
Now, this one was
this
a
one
tricky
is
one,
yeah, this
बिल्कुल.
one was jolly great. So if they would have said Hamas, we would have said first Intifada, second Intifada, and like right
And the
now,
current one, yes,
है ना? But this they are talking about Gaza.
Plus you don't have a third option.
हाँ, so you don't have a third option only. And so Gaza basically, what we believe is, of course, what we believe नहीं है, Egypt की बात करें, what's there in history. So 1948, right? Correct. 19, which was on the 15th of May 1948, I think,
Yes.
one day after they were made,
Exactly.
right? Then 1956 was Suez Canal crisis.
बिल्कुल, ma'am.
Suez Canal is also related to Egypt. Egypt is related to Gaza. Then is 1967, which is the Six Days War. Then Yom Kippur, which is the 1973 का war. फिर आ गया Intifada 1,
First Intifada, 87. And then you have the second one.
Yeah, we believe it should be the seventh war.
Option C.
Yeah, option C should be the answer here. Which major war does the current Gaza-Israel conflict resemble? हर एक The Hindu और Indian Express के article में the only thing that they are talking about is the Yom Kippur
Yes,
war.
ma'am.
And why does it relate to Yom Kippur? I'd like to talk about that is because of the fact that, you know, this is the time of atonement for the Jews. Right, so they keep this fast and they have this entire festival where they're saying, they're apologizing for their misdeeds to their God. So back 50 years back in 1973, exactly around that time, there was an attack and the same thing happened here too.
Exactly.
So that is what this is for the 42nd question. Now this is my personal favorite since it's the Constitution. I'll first talk about the relevance of it. Again, 50 years of the basic structure, Keshananda Bharti versus State of Kerala or the Union of India. And so instead of asking you questions such as which was the judge, you know, who was sitting there, or how many judges were there, or how many days did the case go on for, they instead asked you about the very basics of the Constitution. And let me tell you, this is in every NCERT from 5th standard. Right? Political science बोलते हो उसको 5th standard में मुझे नहीं पता, लेकिन 5th standard, 6th standard, 7th standard, 8th standard हर जगह पे ये पूरा concept है. So let's talk about it. The concept is, I'm not going to read the passage since you already have read it. The concept is with respect to the preamble. Now, why the preamble? Because they are talking about the basic structure, and Keshananda Bharti, what did it say? That the preamble gives us the basic structure. And amongst many, many other things, there is something known as the social, economic and political justice. And that's exactly what this is talking about. Now look at the brilliance of this question, because they are talking about women representation. So in that sense, political justice आ रहा है, लेकिन कहते हैं social economic justice अभी तक नहीं आया है. So they have combined the women reservation with the basic structure concept. Right? So what is the life of contradiction referred to over here is that they say, and which is the first line, that in politics we will have equality, and in social and economic structure continue to deny the principle. Right? So A should be the answer here. It says that of equality in politics, but inequality in social and economic structure.
G.
The next one is, what will happen according to Dr. Ambedkar if we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? Again, it's mentioned there somewhere, peril karke likha hai, abhi I can't find it. So it says that we must note, where is it? So basically,
paragraph, fourth line.
First paragraph, fourth line. Yeah. So if we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. In peril, udhar likh diya, niche in danger likh diya. You know, it's absolutely the same thing then. Okay, so B should be the answer here. which is what is exactly there. We will not go for D as the answer. Why? Because in the question itself they say we continue to deny equality in social economic life. अरे भाई जब deny कर रहे हो equality in social economic life तो वो तो peril में है ही है ना, वो तो बड़ी obvious चीज है, वो तो प्रश्न लिखा है. तो but they have already mentioned it. What will be the outcome of that? Is that when there is no social justice, no economic justice, there can't be any political justice. I'll give you an example. Very simple. If we do not consider every person of different caste similar, if we do not give them equal opportunities in jobs, then how will that, even if that person stands for election, will anyone elect that person? No. So there's a reason why पहले social justice आएगा, फिर economic, फिर political. ये मेरे को बड़ा पसंद है passage, तो मैं ज़्यादा ही बोल रही हूँ. So I'm going to go ahead. What might be the cause, according to Dr. Ambedkar, if things go wrong under the new constitution? So what might be the cause is what they're saying. If you can see it over here in the very last passage, last lines of the passage, however good a constitution may be, it is sure to turn out bad because those who are called to work it happen to be a bad lot. On the other hand, if the constitution is good, right, if the constitution is bad but the people are good, it might turn out to be like a good thing. Again, not getting into politics at all, but lovely question. So the answer is, if things go wrong under the new constitution, that the men called upon to work the constitution were not good. फिर आ गया, what does social democracy mean? अभी यहाँ पे क्या है? Equality before law आएगा नहीं, because it's a negative concept. It has been taken from the UK constitution and it basically says treat everyone equally despite their differences. Right, so that can't be social democracy, especially in our country, and of course they're talking about our Indian constitution. Exactly. Right, so equality of opportunities seems like a good option. Let's go ahead. Equality in social life. Right, so equality in social life, I mean, it makes no sense over here because social democracy goes beyond that. It talks about equality of status and opportunities.
Social life के कई सारे पैरामीटर्स हैं मैम, एक पे हम लोग स्टिक नहीं कर सकते.
और इकोनॉमिक लाइफ तो चलो ठीक है, सो बी शुड बी द आंसर्स.
इसमें एक चीज ये भी मैम प्रीएम्बल में हमारे मेंशन भी किया हुआ है,
इक्वालिटी ऑफ स्टेटस एंड अपॉर्चुनिटी.
सो इक्वालिटी दो तरीके की हो, इक्वालिटी ऑफ स्टेटस, इक्वालिटी ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी. तो अगर आपने प्रीएम्बल भी देखा है तो वहां से इसको आप बड़े आराम से रिड्यूस कर सकते थे.
ऑल्सो इक्वालिटी ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी encompasses every aspect of life, right? Not just economy, people to people interaction, everything. Well, yeah, correct. So that's that. When does a bad constitution turn out to be good? When the people called upon to work it are good. Simple as that. That's what is mentioned there. And finally, which of the following statements not correct about what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar feels about the constitution? That the constitution is strong enough to hold the country together in peacetime only. I mean, we've seen wars, right? And ours is a constitution. Even the American constitution had to be remade. हाँ, हमारा बहुत बढ़िया संविधान है, वो वॉर टाइम में भी चलता है.
प्लस मैम ये मेंशन भी किया हुआ है, अगर आपने सिर्फ कॉम्प्रिहेंशन भी अगर ठीक से पढ़ा है तो यू कैन आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन जस्ट बाय रीडिंग द कॉम्प्रिहेंशन एज वेल. मैम वो मेंशन किया हुआ है उस वहां पे.
लवली. सो ओके, नाउ द नेक्स्ट वन इज फॉर यू.
ओके, सो दिस वन गाइस ऑलरेडी बहुत बार हम लोगों ने मैगजीन में मेंशन किया है, क्लासेस में डिस्कस किया है. नाउ दिस कॉम्प्रिहेंशन वाज विद रेफरेंस टू द G20. हम सब लोग जानते हैं कि इंडिया has got the presidency of G20 from 1st December 2022 से 30th November अब ख़त्म हुआ recently, और हम लोगों ने देखा कि now the new presidency holder is Brazil. यहाँ पे पूरा का पूरा डिटेल में हम लोग ले चुके हैं G20 के बारे में. We know all the in and out about the G20. तो यहाँ पे जो पहला वाला क्वेश्चन है मैम, your opinion on this. The G20, the Group 20 forum is a forum for, you have to select the correct options, ma'am.
So see, gone are the days that we were just talking about the Asian financial crisis and G20, right? It is even talking about artificial intelligence. There was a special G20 session because Taliban rule came into being in 2021. Exactly, so it can't. And दो तो मैंने बता दिए, अब आप मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग का बताइए, फिर हम all of the बात बोलते हैं.
Yes, FATF is also a member. The people, the representation of FATF was also in the G20 summit that happened at Bharat Mandapam. So यहाँ पे your correct answer would be all of the above.
Right.
Now the next one, again मैंने अभी आपको बता दिया, the G20 summit is hosted by incumbent presidency. The G20 presidency is responsible for bringing together the G20 agenda in consultation with other members and in response to developments in the global economy. कहानी दे करके रखी हुई है, क्वेश्चन सीधा पढ़ना था, which country will hold the presidency in 2024? हम लोगों ने डिस्कस भी किया है बहुत बार, ब्राजील इज द राइट आंसर. इंडोनेशिया के पास लास्ट ईयर थी, इंडोनेशिया से इंडिया के पास आई है बेटा. Again, a very good question. Which of the following countries is not a member of G20? Not a member of G20, guys. यहाँ पर कई सारे students टर्की मार्क करके आए हैं. I don't know क्यों ये गलती हुई है. Remember, ma'am, there was a summit on tourism that happened in Srinagar, and there were a few countries who boycotted. Like Turkey was the one. China also boycotted.
Correct.
Saudi Arab said we won't be attending it. Also, Egypt was one country, and it was said that Egypt was the only guest member that even they have been called, yet they decided not to attend in these meetings.
Correct.
So yes, Egypt would be the right answer here.
और जब हम लोग इंडिया मिडिल ईस्ट यूरोप कॉरिडोर की बात करते हैं तो हम बोलते हैं दैट यू नो इजिप्ट वाज कॉल्ड बट इट वाज नॉट अ मेंबर एंड इट डिड नॉट साइन, क्योंकि उसका तो सुएज कनाल है.
बिल्कुल. एक चीज और थी मैम यहाँ पे, like during my sessions what I used to do was मैं हमेशा लोगों को बोलता था कि भाई I don't know why but Egypt is a very important topic. Starting of the year 26 जनवरी जो हमारे चीफ गेस्ट थे, जो हम लोगों ने देखा इजिप्ट के जो प्रेसिडेंट थे, उसके बाद फर्स्ट एवर मिलिट्री एक्सरसाइज ऑपरेशन साइक्लोन हैपेंड बिटवीन इंडियन आर्मी. तो ये लगातार न्यूज में थे. ऑल्सो प्राइम मिनिस्टर वेंट टू इजराइल, द फेमस मॉस्क अल हाकिम मॉस्क, और उसके बाद हम लोगों ने देखा जो हाईएस्ट सिविलियन ऑनर है मैम, द लीजन ऑफ सॉरी ऑर्डर ऑफ द नाइल. तो ये सारी चीजों की वजह से इजिप्ट यहाँ पे बिल्कुल एक ऑब्वियस आंसर था.
करेक्ट.
At every G20 summit, next question, the host country invites countries and institutions that are not members of the G20. Which among the following denotes the correct list of countries being G20 invitees to the summit held in New Delhi in September 2023? Guys, G20 के जो 20 members हैं, उसके अलावा स्पेन एक permanent guest attendee. स्पेन का status वो permanent है. स्पेन हमेशा guest attendee रहेगा किसी भी summit में. तो यहाँ पे अगर आप अपने ऑप्शंस को अगर आप सर्च करते हो तो इकलौता ऑप्शन आपको ऑप्शन सी दिखाई देता है. हाउएवर, हो सकता है आप कंफ्यूज हो गए होंगे. इट वाज वेरी प्रोमिनेंट बांग्लादेश की जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर शेख हसीना जब आई, ओके, तब उस टाइम पे भी हम लोगों ने देखा कि G20 के समिट के टाइम.
आई थिंक यू विल हैव टू रिपीट इट अगेन बिकॉज़ ऑफ द माइक. दैट्स ओके, यू कैन यूज दैट वन.
ओके, सो मैम हम लोग देखा था कि स्पेन जो है वो तो आपका परमानेंट गेस्ट अटेंडी है ही. उसके अलावा द फर्स्ट पर्सन टू एंटर द भारत मंडपम वाज शेख हसीना. तो बांग्लादेश का रेफरेंस यहाँ पे बहुत क्लियर हो सकता है. नेदरलैंड्स वाज आल्सो अ गेस्ट अटेंडी अलोंग विद सिंगापुर. सो ऑप्शन नंबर सी वुड बी योर राइट आंसर.
Right. So that is that. With respect to GK, I know a lot of you are very upset that why GK was so easy. बेटा difficult आती तो भी आप upset होते, easy आई तो भी आप upset है. Point is, you knew it, and we are glad that you knew it, and you will make it to your dream college, right? So that is it. I think any closing.
बस मैम यही है चीज कि I hope आप सब लोगों ने silly mistakes नहीं करी है पेपर में. पेपर बहुत ज्यादा डिफिकल्ट नहीं बोलूंगा, बट ये भी नहीं बोलूंगा कि पेपर बहुत ज्यादा इजी था जीके के कंटेक्स्ट में. आप लोगों को ये आसान इसलिए लग रहा है गाइस बिकॉज वी हैव रियली वर्कड हार्ड. आपने पढ़ा हुआ है इसलिए आसान लग रहा है. ओके, सो जस्ट आई होप आप सब लोगों के बहुत अच्छे रिजल्ट्स आए. ओके, और बहुत जल्द मुलाकात करेंगे आप सब लोगों से आपके रिस्पेक्टिव सेंटर्स में. थैंक यू.
Thank you.
Good evening everyone. Now we are back with the logical reasoning section analysis of CLAT 2024. My name is Dr. Surabhi Modi Sahai. With me are Sajal and Siddharth. We train students at CLAT Possible for English and logical reasoning. When we started out with solving this paper, all three of us unanimously decided that the logical reasoning section of this year's paper will be the deciding factor in determining the top ranks in CLAT 2024. So let's discuss why we decided this is going to be the deciding factor.
I think, ma'am, as far as our understanding of the whole section is, I think there are two passages which were slightly trickier and which were a little bit different from what we have faced so far. One of them was primarily centered around decision making, which is something which has been primarily seen in UPSC and ZAT kind of management examinations. So that was a slightly trickier passage, and then apart from that, there have been a couple of questions where the options have been slightly ambiguous. I think Sajal sir can continue from here.
So we can go directly to that passage, the passage we are referring to, the decision making passage on the screen.
So this passage is the first passage that came up in set O of the paper. Now set O of this paper started with this very small passage, very ZAT-like passage, seen in the ZAT paper and seen in the UPSC exams. So it could play two factors on the psyche of the test taker. One, okay, what do I have to do here? What is the answer going to be like? And two, is the whole paper going to be like this? So first and foremost, I think any good test taker would have gone over and checked all the question types and seen that this was only one passage. This was not the passage theme of the entire logical reasoning section, which comprised questions from regular critical reasoning genres like main idea, must be true. These are the topics that we teach in class under the headings main idea, must be true, that were primarily the maximum ones, and a lot of questions also from strengthen and weaken, which students practice throughout the year at CLAT Possible. So if we look at this passage, it had a small problem statement followed by information which had to be put in. We can also call it the analytical reasoning aspect of the passage. Would you disagree?
I wouldn't, ma'am. I think this kind of a question, it has not really been seen by the students so far, where I think in terms of, even if you talk about question 85 per se, there is no direct approach. And I think like this question was a little bit ambiguous in nature because there are potentially maybe two options where a student can gravitate towards in an examination. So I think in terms of, if we factor in the pressure which a student might have been facing in the exam, this is something which they could consider maybe even leaving potentially, because you can, you're not really sure that whether we'll be able to arrive at the correct answer or not.
So in 85, for example, would it be safe to say if students are dwelling on the word root, because the information given to us stems from here, and if we call this a fulcrum, we can probably approach the entire set as this being the fulcrum of the problem, and then moving on to things like maybe because it requires specialized operators, as a result of which breakdowns and all are happening, maybe due to the lack of operators. But again, the problem is that the ambiguity of the information provided is not helping us link all the four factors, which is the new system, breakdowns, lack of motivation and job satisfaction. Of course, there is an outlying factor which says that other competitors are also using the same technology but are not facing that problem, which could lead to two potential inferential theories from here. A, maybe their manpower is motivated, and B, maybe they have specialized operators.
Yeah, so the primary assumption with which we are approaching these questions is that the root cause is the introduction of the new system, and from that and the lack of specialized operators. Again, we are assuming because it is given in so many words that is more automated, but requires, it says after but, requires highly specialized operators, and an assumption there is that maybe they lack those operators, and that is affecting the morale of the employees, the workforce, and also that is also resulting in the frequent breakdowns. It says there have been several breakdowns, right? So we are not very sure whether the breakdown is due to a problem in the machine itself, or it is due to the lack of specialized operators. We are working with the assumption that it is due to the latter.
I think especially if you look at the way the points jump from point number 1 to point number 2, where it says that is more automated but requires highly specialized operators. The second line saying that the workforce has reported a lack of motivation. Now there could be one theory where the workers just don't have the skills required, and maybe that is why they are facing that lack of motivation, leading to absenteeism, which might be resulting in the breakdown of machinery. So I think there are many plausible theories for this.
So again, that brings us to a very important question. Should a national level exam, which is going to select candidates, base 5 questions on, so much of ambiguity where we are left to theorize on the points given to us? Having said that, we still have to answer these questions. So for the 85th question, would we look at this question stemming from the root cause?
I think if we go by the root cause, then we should go for A, I guess. Yes.
The introduction of the system brought in the problems with it.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going with A here. So we are going with A here. This is the root cause. The new system was introduced. There weren't many specialized operators, and that could have led to the several breakdowns that they faced, right? So as I said, there could be 2 theories, but we are working with the latter theory, wherein the system lack of specialized operators is contributing to everything else.
Just erase this, then we can move to the next question. So maybe you can do this set.
Yeah. So the next one says, what makes the introduction of the new production system a potential contributing factor? The introduction of the system itself.
So this question made us...
a lot of debate went on.
Yeah, but this question I think somewhat validates our theory, Sajal and Siddharth, that looking at the root cause, which is the introduction of the new system. Because the very next question, and this is what we usually stress upon, that the linkage of questions also give validation to your theories. Yes. So if that is a follow-up question, it more or less hints at the root cause being the new system which has been introduced.
And one point which we can make is just because the machinery is causing several breakdowns does not by itself prove that it is prone to the said breakdowns, right? So we cannot really infer that completely.
Also look at the last point, everyone and both of you. If the other competitors are using the same system and if their machinery is not prone to breakdown, then why should this company's machinery be prone to breakdown from the very system? That means
there has to be a linkage with the workers somewhere.
With the specialized workers. So our answer for 86 therefore is
Bombay. B.
B, yes.
So another problem with C which I found was, and both Siddharth and I, was the use of the word prone. Right? It said there have been several breakdowns. Right?
But at the same time, the competitors are not experiencing any delays.
Several does not lend credence to the theory that, it is a tendency of sorts. So,
I mean, so it'll take us a jump.
It's a bit of a jump for sure.
It's a bit of a jump to, so we are going with option B. I'll just mark it again. Option B for question number 86.
But then guys, you should care that 85 and 86, the question can swing both ways, as in the answer, right? So don't just start panicking. This is what we feel. Of course, there might be a difference in interpretation, so there's no need to panic per se, right?
But logic dictates what we feel.
For sure.
However, as we have anyways put these questions in the grey areas. The next one, 87. So what is the critical difference between the company's situation and that of the competitors was a straightforward question.
Yeah.
So the answer for that is C.
C.
Yeah.
So let's mark C.
I mean, the rest of them are very easily eliminatable, I think.
So we can go over those quickly. Next. 88, again, I think is a straightforward question, which can be gathered from the information given, which is C again. Moving to 89th. What could be a possible solution to address the decline in production efficiency? Now, this again would bring us back to our original theory, because I think, Siddharth, Sajal, we did need a theory here to go with 3 questions at least. And that theory which should link all the critical points mentioned. And the critical points mentioned were, yes, this company is facing issues when it comes to workers and breakdown in machinery, which we link to lack of a specialized workforce, because both motivation of workers and breakdown in machinery are potential options, you know.
If we take the core issue as the installation of the production system, then I think all of the questions just get tied up to each other.
And fall into a pattern. So based on that theory again, we are looking at option A for 89th.
So it basically translates to the primary cause being this
installation.
This introduction of the new system, lack of specialized operators, and from this primary cause there are these 2 effects, several breakdowns and lack of motivation in the workers, right?
Yeah.
So A addresses it, B is like addressing the effect, A is like addressing the cause
Just
itself.
a symptom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just because we implement a motivation program does not by itself mean that they will get the skills required to operate the said machinery. So,
Or from the next day they will be so motivated that all these problems will fade into the margins.
this is a bit of a jump, we feel. So,
The next question, the last question of this set,
90.
90th. Based on the information provided, what is the potential consequence of increased customer complaints about product quality? Again, I think was an easy answer, which is option C.
C, yeah.
C is correct.
The rest of them just don't match the tone, most of them. So, yeah.
And easy to eliminate options for 90th, easy to eliminate options for 88. So these 2 questions definitely were easy to handle in spite of the ambiguity around the other questions in this set.
For sure.
But from here on, I think we do have, you know, more standardized critical reasoning passages and questions. So we will move to the next passage. This again, to repeat for those who have just joined us, we are looking at set O. So the next passage for us is on words, which is question number 91.
I think again, this is a simple passage, simple enough to understand. Basically, the author is just, espousing that what are the various positive things which we can see and which can occur via words. And I think in terms of questions, I think apart from one single question, the whole passage was pretty easy to solve. I think
most of the questions were pretty straightforward. We could have eliminated options. The correct option was correct. You could have seen it from a distance. So,
for example, 91st central theme, easy to eliminate options.
Absolutely.
It isn't history, which is a key word there. It isn't the importance of storytelling. Straightforward answer for main idea, which is option B. Even if you had read it cursorily, the passage, it was easy to choose between options A, B, C and D, which is option B.
Yep, for sure.
Coming to 92nd over here. Now, what does a word symbolize? While the passage clearly did say that it fits neither in an animate or inanimate category. So, yes, that part has been underlined for you over there. But the options did not refrain, the correct option also did not refrain from using words like tangible and intangible, right? So, the only way we could differentiate between options A, B, C and D was that it is not categorically an object or an entity. It is a concept, which is what you can gather from the line, from the third line onwards.
Yep, and I think the whole passage is also talking about, how much a word symbolizes in terms of what effect it has on, various people. So I think, especially because of that line, I think all the rest of the three
Yes.
get eliminated pretty easily.
Actually, there's this line which says, formed from ethereal, right? Formed from ethereal. And then it goes on to tell us how this word imparts semantic existence
To the lifeless.
and form upon the formless. But it does not call the word itself a tangible entity, right? So from these two, we can easily
So
reach.
we eliminate words like object and entity, and I think the safe
Only
word
thing
over
left.
there was concept.
Yeah. Slightly tricky though. It might
Yeah.
have taken a little bit of a time there.
Maybe because they could have refrained from using the word tangible and intangible since it was directly negated from the passage. Still, I think if you put in a little thought there, option D should have stayed with you. Moving to 93rd. How does the passage describe words' ability to affect emotions? Now,
I mean, the first and the third option are pretty extreme, so we can just straight away eliminate them
Yes.
through the words only and so.
Yeah,
I mean,
we have an only
yeah.
here.
And we have a
and we have a no impact there.
Yeah.
So here we are left with options B and D. Even though option D is stated in the passage,
Yeah,
you know,
something from here.
yeah. But B is the answer we go with as it is able to capture the central idea of the
Yeah,
passage.
and I think it is matching the tone as well.
And it
so-
is matching the tone and idea
Yeah.
of the passage because it does say that all the emotions are taken in by words and then emitted by them. So having said that, D is given, but we stick to the central idea and tone.
Especially
which-
the way I think the question is structured, ma'am, like how does the passage describe the word's ability to
Ability.
affect emotions? Now, if we say that they can be devoid of emotions, it does not really show how it's affecting anyone, right? So I think B is much more safer and closer to the passage, I think.
Yeah, more encompassing.
Yeah, for sure.
B is correct.
94th.
This is another simple one, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
94th is a simple question. We have to draw a conclusion from captivating, enchanting and daunting encounter with the world. So over here, what basically we are looking at is that any negative option like manipulation, and the author has been very open with the use of words and does not really spell any caution. And we have been given the words to dwell upon, which perfectly matches with option D.
How we perceive the world through words.
Through words.
Right, so D is correct.
And more inclusive of everything that the author has said. Oh. The 95th question, the glowworm question, the author's idea of words being glowworms. Basically, what they do is they dispel the darkness,
Yep.
which is positivity in a negative surrounding. So it was also a pretty straightforward answer considering the tone and theme of the passage, that words help us with escaping the harsh realities of the world, and that takes us to option C.
I think there could have been a potential confusion between option B and C while
Yes.
people were giving this example.
But when we are looking at option B, we are also looking at educating the reader. Here we have to draw the parallel with the word darkness.
Yeah, and the word dispelling actually
Also,
seals it.
this word here momentarily.
Yeah, dispelling
Right.
also like seals it.
Yeah.
Yes, momentarily and dispelling. So illuminating the mind of the reader is not momentary.
Yeah.
Yep, it is the
It is,
long-term educational
uh,
thing.
yes.
Escaping
Yeah.
reality is.
Escaping reality is because very soon the effect of the goodness around the word may disappear and you are back into the real world. So that brings us to C. 96th, the word within the word is pretty much given in the last line of the passage and easy to eliminate the other options which are not mentioned anywhere, and the answer will be option A.
Yeah.
So it was a simple question. So if we discuss so far the two passages, We do have 2 to 3 simple questions in every passage, and one question definitely where you may need to stay longer with the question and come back to the basics that you have picked up in the classroom, learnt in the classroom.
Especially for all the 25 kids we are watching will be attempting this examination later. You guys have to understand that at all times if there are like 6 questions in a passage, at least 3 or 4 of them are always immediately solvable. There will be at least like 1 or 2 questions where you might, potentially think that I'm getting trapped. But the key is that you should answer the easy ones first and then go towards the difficult ones. In this case, the vocabulary one and the one before this, right? So just take care and remember that at all times, 3 to 4 questions are always solvable. It's not a dire situation, no matter how bad it may seem inside the exam.
Yes, and remember the power of reviewing, there's no rush to mark the answer straight away. You can circle it if you don't want to spend too much time on the tricky questions and come back and recheck it after you have finished the entire section. So that brings us to the end of the second passage, and we move to the third passage, which is on, the quota suicides.
And how the institutes are basically contributing towards suicides, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
quite a statement passage, would you not say, everyone?
The consortium has really
Yes, they have made a very subtle statement, I must say.
The quota ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think it applies to us because we are a happy space here, and I think
For
if
sure.
anything else, kids that walk into our classrooms are really happy to be there.
Yep.
Would you guys agree?
I would.
All right. So the questions over here, 97th one, would you like to lead it, Sajal?
Yeah. So as per the author, which one of the following is not likely? So whenever we encounter a question where there is a not, what I suggest is always encircle the word.
Yep.
Right? That you are always aware while going through the options, because sometimes I read not, it does not register, right?
True.
And sometimes what happens is I know there is a not, but while going through the options, I still tend to miss it, right? So not likely leading to suicide among the students.
This was,
Again, there are 2 options.
two
which are like
very, very
basically
close
very close.
options that bring the answer into a little bit of gray area.
Right.
But,
So
yeah.
option A says incorrect marketing strategies by the coaching institutes, and there's some reference about this in the middle of the passage which says marketing campaigns, massive marketing campaigns, coaching industries massive marketing campaigns further exacerbate the situation with some strategies veering into the ethical gray areas, right? And now the other close option here was living in a surrounding with different background and culture, and there was again some reference
Near the bottom.
which
That's
was
present near the bottom, sir.
right in the bottom somewhere.
For marginalized community, the 4th last line, sir.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
Right
the
there.
way
Right,
of
this
figure
one.
is-
So for marginalized communities and gender minorities, these hurdles, now these hurdles is referring to something that is given before this, which says adapting to new living arrangements, right? So all these students going into a new place and living in newer conditions, right? So both have been referred to, but the framing of the option A, which says incorrect marketing strategies. So it says the marketing strategies fall in some sort of gray area, but incorrect marketing strategies could mean so many different things. Maybe it is an incorrect marketing strategy because it does not work, right? So from a business standpoint, it could be an incorrect marketing strategy. So there's some problem with the framing. Again, we are
Also-
inclined, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So also, if you look at the line just before that, it says a stark discrepancy emerges between the preparation for board exams and competitive tests, amplifying the inequalities that plague the education system. The coaching industry's massive marketing campaigns further exacerbate the situation. Now, the situation being talked about here, I don't think it is tantamount to suicide. It is basically talking about that inequality thing getting even further divided.
And also the marketing of the campaigns are exacerbating. So here the marketing campaign is not really incorrect. It is targeting this group of children who are anyways confused between board and competitive exams, and the coachings are marketing the competitive exam. I think this is what they mean. And this marketing of the competitive exam is leading the student to further confusion, what to give time to.
And if
So,
if the question is getting like structured around suicide, so if we read that line, these hurdles are often amplified. Social media algorithms exacerbate mental health concerns, showing loneliness and impending attention spans and creativity. So again, I think as far as if you look at the question overall, that which is going to be likely leading to suicide, I think option A is
not
like a bit of a leap, I would say, like just jumping into suicide.
So the exacerbation that we are speaking about here deals with the confusion more than the mental health concern, and the other concerns mentioned in B and C, which are straightforward, likely to lead to suicides. Staying away from home, a culture shock, and an already existing mental health concern. The trigger point could be anything. So B, C and D we feel fall into the likelihood of the said thing, and A is a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's like a B, C, D as safer options as far as like the passage structure goes. So
So for the not answer, A would be a better answer, because marketing strategies exacerbating a situation which is leading to confusion. Yes, so it's like a very, very indirect reach to the problem that has been mentioned.
Can't really make the leap to suicides, I guess.
Yeah. 98, would you lead 98, Siddharth?
I think which of the following is not true regarding the education system as per the opinion of the author? And again, like this is a pretty self-explanatory question. This was directly written as well. So I think the answer, which we've gone with is going to be B, right?
Yeah.
Because merit of the students is not the determining factor, but I think merit is, if not the most chief contributing factor towards everything, right?
So again, we
are
mindful.
not.
We are mindful of this word not.
Absolutely.
So you either circle it. Usually I tell the students to make a cross in front of the question, which they keep seeing the cross, and they realize that the answer which is not true for the situation will be the answer here. So 98 is B.
B. Yeah.
99.
Which of the following strengthens the argument regarding the idea of merit as per the above mentioned passage? So basically again we have to exemplify or strengthen the fact that how the author has shown the idea of merit, and I think we've gone with option C in this, right? Because true merit is not multifaceted. No, I think we should be it should be going with option A, right?
A.
So the true merit is multifaceted and extends beyond.
We are on 99,
99,
right?
right?
Sorry,
99,
this is 100. Yeah. So 99, we have to strengthen it
as per the author, like how he sees merit. Yeah.
So that is option A.
Yeah, for sure.
So it says here idea of merit, highlighting its.
Basically, the author is saying that the idea of merit extends beyond
nuanced
examination.
nature.
Yeah.
So highlighting its nuanced nature. Basically, the author is saying we have not completely understood, and again there is a reference to it somewhere, shrouded in something.
Just right in front
Merit
of it.
is shrouded in misunderstanding.
Right. So A says, of course, merit is not understood completely. True merit is multifaceted and extends beyond performance in a
C
single
would
competent-
weaken the option.
And if you look at option B, can only be identified.
Way
This
too
is going
extreme.
against what the author is saying. It's not multifaceted, it's just the opposite, stark opposite. So easy to eliminate.
Yep.
B, C definitely over here. And D also, the author is putting school and the whole education system
He's looking at it in a negative
darkness.
light. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, C is very interestingly framed. It's just added a knot here.
Yeah.
And if you miss it, then maybe, so if anyone has missed the knot in C, could just have fallen for that, or
So 99 is A.
Yeah.
100. What is correct regarding the inequalities mentioned by the author? Again, I think it was easy to eliminate options over here. The inequalities, there is no difference, is not correct.
Three of them are just like going against the tone, right? Because education system accommodates the inequalities. If anything, it is
That's
exacerbating.
the author has said does not accommodate. And
D is pretty straightforward here.
yeah, C is also easy to eliminate. Answer will be option D. 101.
Which of the following statements reflects the use of online platforms for education as per the author, right?
Yeah, so it's given right in the end. Technology is an equalizer, a potential equalizer in this landscape. So that's pretty much given over there. While it does not help encourage the student to prepare, students I think are
Basically, it
motivated
is
to
bridging
prepare.
that inequality aspect, right?
So whatever cultural difference, staying away from home, all that bothers a student, technology comes to their rescue. So the answer is going to be option A.
Yeah.
And the last one here is question number 102.
Which of the following is not a challenge for quality education? Again, pretty
Straightforward. Not
Influence-
has to be underlined.
Yeah, for sure. I think this year especially, I think there has been a lot of not
Nots,
questions. They've
lot of nots.
absolutely really increased the numbers. And they're trying for cheap tricks, I guess. Like trying to trap the students, right? So students have to be mindful of all of this. Because I think almost like out of
so
the what...
D,
50,
D.
Option
yeah,
D is
it
the
should be D.
straightforward answer here.
Coming to the last passage, I guess now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just put it back. So this passage, do you want to lead here?
Yeah, I'll have to. All right, so this particular passage calls for an agency. The author says, TRI has made a strong case. Maybe I'll go to the screen and underline it. Some of the important statements in the passage. So it says, TRI has made a strong case for an independent statutory authority, right? And for what purpose? For the development and use of AI in the country, right? A global agency, and some of these global agencies have also applied. I think there's an example of Microsoft that is given here, right? But what the author argues for is that the Indian government's role should be a predominant one. Indian government should be the one who should be leading as to how the AI has to be developed and used and what regulations should govern it, right? Rather than basing everything on how the world uses it, right? There's a line in the second paragraph, the first line, which says, India is only at the receiving end as of now, nowhere close to the US and China's advances, right? Another important line in the passage was a line on indigenous efforts, which was in the last paragraph, which was knowing how much Indians' future shall be shaped by generative AI needs matching efforts to create indigenous models, right? So the emphasis is on indigenous models, and also the emphasis is on the government. GOI alone can push academy industry collaborations, how the government should lead this effort, right? And not leave it to an independent private agency or an agency which is operating internationally,
So
right?
if anyone caught these lines, answers were here in
Yep.
these lines, you know. The entire central theme based passage which we talk about, if you have got the central theme, all your answers will again fall into place.
This is one of the most easier passages,
Yes.
I think, among
Yeah.
the four.
I think this line towards the end was a giveaway.
Let us lead.
Let us lead instead of only
Only
being
being
led.
led. So the first question, 103, what is the author most likely to agree with? I guess
I
it
think-
was
Easy, it was easy, I think. Government-led initiatives of AI regulation and development lead to
Efficient
outcomes.
The author
This
is
is option
advocating
D.
for that.
Which is option D, right?
Especially when the, like,
and
when
we can eliminate the best way.
Yeah, and we've underlined that, right? Like GOI alone can push
Yeah.
academia,
And-
industry collaborations.
Yeah, and
Yep.
children know that things like the best way, the only way,
All
is-
are extreme in
is,
nature.
are the extreme answers which we anyways have made them.
So many of the questions, they didn't need us.
Yeah. Not at all. I think, apart from the first passage, I think it was a relatively
if they had
easy
done the classes well,
Yep.
if they had done the black books well, just paid attention in class, even 50%.
Yeah.
I think this paper was something which should have come, they should have brought home with decent answers. 104.
So which one of the following, if true, would strengthen the main argument of the passage? Main argument is the government of India should take the lead, the models should be indigenous, right? So let's look at the options. A says governments that lead the initiative on regulating and responding to advancement of AI tools benefit the most from them,
I mean,
right?
This seems to be
Yeah.
correct so far.
Yeah. This is like the option, right? nothing much there.
B
B
just-
says governments that don't engage with generative AI and remain at its receiving end stay risk averse with nothing to lose.
Exactly opposite.
Is the
Yeah,
opposite of what
opposite
the
of-
passage is trying to tell us?
C says governments that actively incentivize MNCs to participate in AI governance take the most out of the advancements in the field.
But we are
yeah,
looking at
yeah,
MNCs,
yeah. Again, going contrary to what is given in the passage. D says governments that explore models of public-private partnership strike the right balance in regulating. So it says strike the right balance. The author is not looking necessarily for the right balance between the government, public-private. He is more towards government taking the
Leading.
lead, right? So A does the job the best. A is correct. So based on the author's statement that Indian courts should start engaging with the broader issue of non-human agency rather than wait for precedents to be set elsewhere, which of the following would the author be most likely to agree with, right? So option A says courts should take initiative by being innovative and laying down rules where no precedents exist.
This
so
is clearly
Seems
yeah,
to be
yeah,
like
given,
the best
right?
out of the lot, right?
So they have to be proactive. A looks good. And any option that comes close?
B is
no,
again opposite.
B is the opposite, right? Neither is the author saying that.
Yeah, it says, C says courts should stop relying. Okay, so C says courts should stop relying on precedents, right? This one is an interesting one. It says they should stop relying on precedents. So the author, so for example, there is a precedent and it's justified. So the author won't say don't rely on precedents.
And not relying on precedent
Yeah.
is basically making it really extreme. I
Yes,
think.
yes.
Yeah.
All the author is saying
That taking
make your own,
precedence.
yeah, make your own rules, right? Before precedents are being set, make your own rules, right? The
So,
last line, let
I
us
think,
lead.
When the author says that, make your own precedents, does not mean that
Yeah.
if there are some existing, you don't rely on them
Yeah,
at
no,
all.
Absolutely.
So A is correct.
106th, what has to be necessarily true? So must be
Yes.
true
Must
questions.
be true inference.
Reminds us of all the must be true classes we have taken. Yes.
This is a straightforward one again.
Yes. 106 was, I think, given. AI is a collaborative effort.
The first
Alone
one is
makes
just
it
Alone
plain
can be
extreme.
eliminated, right?
Standalone statutory rules would again,
Yes.
make us rely on.
Yes. So C here is correct. Option B also, right? It says AI regulation is the responsibility of the courts. No, actually, it's the responsibility of the governments. Courts are to adjudicate, right?
Yeah.
So option B, again, there's a problem with the framing. Option C fits the bill. C is correct.
107th,
Based on the author's argument, which of the following would result in weakening rather than strengthening India's position at the forefront of generative AI? So again, we are basing our, so this is not really a weakening question per se. It's already given in the passage, right? We just have to see what does not fit, right? So I think there were a couple of options here that might have occurred
that was
confusing.
troublesome, yeah.
So there was option B, I think, which was in the fray, and option C.
B and C were the closest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so option B says exploring spin-off technological benefits with other scientific advancements like the Chandrayaan mission. So it says somewhere here,
The third line in the second paragraph.
right. So this,
Scientific.
yeah, so this promises spin-off technological benefits across Indian industry and blah blah blah.
It's
so,
useful.
Yeah, so it is something that is desirable, right? Now option C says introducing generative models like Wudao, right, which is that Chinese model, which have demonstrated success in other jurisdictions, and this goes against the author's idea of let us lead
Rather than
instead of
We
only
should
being
be
led.
setting the tone, right?
Right?
Instead of
Yes.
following others.
Yes. So,
so the spin-off thing was anyways given,
yeah.
and it has been useful, right? Unless B is read like only using spin-offs and not innovating at all. But that is not being done here. But borrowing what others have done instead of investing in your own AI is going against the tone and theme of the passage. So 107 would be C.
The final question.
And the last question for logical reasoning.
The author states that missing this bus will after all even be more costly than missing the chip research one. For this statement to be true, which of the following statements about chip research must the author most likely agree with? Right. So again,
straightforward.
Absolutely
Very straightforward. That means we missed the bus with the chip.
I think the last line alone is answering 3 questions.
So that is option C.
So you get the central idea, and all of the questions will be
So if you're
easy.
looking at the central idea, this was one textbook passage. You got the main idea, you got the answers, which is what we have been stressing upon.
And one big thing students should note is that this is based around editorials. This is mostly an editorial kind of a passage. So again, the importance of the newspaper just gets strengthened more and more. So you guys should be having an idea of what is happening currently in the climate, so that you can, this is a pure economics and technological based passage which has occurred. So yeah, students should definitely be taking care of all of that and be reading the editorials. I think we should, ma'am, discuss a little bit about what should be the probable cutoff for this section as far as...
So the cutoffs have been released on our website anyways at www.clatpossible.com. We are looking at 3 to 4 ambiguities here, keeping those in mind. For any top 10, 12 NLU, we feel something above 13.5, 14 will be doable. And for top 3, something in the range of 18, 19 marks plus is what will get you to top 3. Because we feel that this is a deciding factor, and because of some ambiguities, because of a lot of knots in the questions, keeping in mind what students may have disregarded the knot or missed the knot,
And that passage.
and that one Zat-like passage. So keeping all of that in mind, any NLU would be 13.5 for first list, whereas top 3 you
18.
should have scored on the other side of 18.
Students should not panic, guys. Remember that this kind of a section overall, this is not the most easiest of sections. There are probable areas, there are potential gray places also, right? So if we are projecting a low cutoff, that means like there has to be definitely some sort of ambiguity happening. So kindly do not panic when you do calculate your scores ki, oh my God, I've messed up so bad. You haven't messed up. The section is slightly, or not even slightly, it's pretty much on the trickier side, I would say.
And initial frenzy is always there where people feel it was easy.
Yeah.
But when that precipitates, good sense prevails, you start looking at the blunders that were made, and everyone makes those blunders. So do not panic. We are projecting these cutoffs and not the frenzied cutoffs that you see or hear around you. Also for CLAT 25 students, the biggest takeaway was stick to basics, come regularly for your classes, and if you just stick to basics and come regularly for your classes, your CLAT is not too far away.
Absolutely.
That is all from logical reasoning, children. We are going to come back with legal reasoning now. Over and out.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Because of the level of difficulty of the CLAT paper, and I think the legal section is not very different in terms of its own level of difficulty. We've had just barely 5 passages, of course 6 questions. Usually we would expect 6 passages with 5 questions each. But anyway, the 6 multiplied by 5 is equal to 5 multiplied by 6. So anyway, we had a total of 30 questions. The first passage in the module that we have, the paper that we've been discussing, we've had a discussion on 2 sections, and if you have not seen the analysis of a couple of those sections, I would suggest you do a rewind right after my conversation and take a look at the GK section analysis, which is what we began with. And of course, we've also had probably the only area which was a little complicated, which is critical reasoning, and we've just finished a discussion on that as well. Anyway, out of the 5 passages, so we had a passage on constitutional law, free speech, and the Press and Registration of Periodicals Act, or rather the bill, should I call it. I think one of the easiest passages that I have, ever seen is probably the juvenile justice law passage, which was, as direct as any CLAT paper at least could be. It just, I graduated in 2010 and got an All India rank 20 in 2005-06 examination of NLS Bangalore and a lot of other things. But one of the easiest question papers I have seen is the 2009 paper, and that too, there was a reason for it. Because the paper got leaked and it had to be redone on a very urgent basis, very, very quickly. Sab kuch jaldi karna pada tha.
And then the only other time there's been an extremely easy paper in my experience is in 2016, because the 2015 paper was anyway one of the most difficult CLAT examinations that we've had. In fact, if I remember correctly, the cutoff for NLS Bangalore was below 120 out of 200. So that's less than 60% score for the top 50, 55, 60 ranks in the whole country. So it was a very complicated paper, a lot of maths, heavy maths focus, etc. And therefore, in 2016, it was a very easy paper. I think gentle reminders this year, critical reasoning being the practical real exception to the level of difficulty. So, long story short, is the legal section was a challenge? Definitely not. Was it a moderately difficult section? Definitely not. Was it an easy to moderate? Again, no. And I would, dare I say, but I would simply bluntly go ahead and say it was a directly easy section. I don't think a lot of students would have faced major challenges. Yes, there were 2-3 questions where, the prior legal knowledge requirement was probably applicable, but at least 27 odd questions, we didn't find anything. Most of it was directly from the passage. I'll of course take you through some of these questions. Let's just jump directly into it. Like I said, the first passage was basically about the free speech aspects. And again, I mean, in all the classrooms that I have taught, that my colleagues have taught, free speech was consistently a major issue. What with the new bills that came now, that the particular bill referred to here was not part of the broader criminal law amendments that have actually been passed, like the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita, and so on. But because of the broad changes that happened, whether it is in the context of UAPA, whether it is in the context of sedition law, what with Amritpal Singh, Punjab, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and so many things that happened in the context of free speech with the Khalistan movement, and I think also in the context of not just sedition and UAP, the fact that sedition law has been replaced to some extent in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which is the replacement for the Indian Penal Code, it's a passage which touches upon a lot of topics that I think most students who have genuinely prepared and attended all the classes here at CLAT Possible, ज़रूर ये topics से related issues या major issues definitely covered थे. The first question was pretty direct, to be honest. It defines newspaper to mean this, this, and this. It's loose folded sheets, usually printed on newsprint and brought out daily or at least once a week. So one of the confusions I think somebody might have is whether news entirely, because it doesn't say partial digital media, option A is media. Some usually printed, iska kya kare. But I think the simpler way to do this is option B is definitely to be rejected. And because option Bombay is rejected, so isliye all of the above also cannot be done. And between A and C, of course, looks like a far more reasonable option. So I don't think a lot of people would have had challenges. I'm assuming a lot of you marked option C as well and did not face too many complications around it. Which among the following is not eligible to publish a periodical? Well, this was, I think, a little bit of prior legal knowledge, but the words are directly applicable and directly available even in the passage. Like if I can just go back very, very quickly, you can look at that line, given the intrusive powers, the statement says section 4.1 and 11.4 allow the registrar to deny the right to bring out a periodical and cancel the certificate of registration of a periodical of 2 persons convicted. So that word convicted is actually directly mentioned. So convicted or accused. Accused, every person is innocent until proven guilty under Indian criminal laws, right? Beyond reasonable doubt, prove करना पड़ता है. तो अगर convict हो गया है मतलब the court has already found that person to be actually guilty. Accused means that person as of now is innocent until proven guilty. So what would we do? We would obviously go with option A, because जो लोग accused है वो disqualified नहीं है. Only people who have actually been convicted, सिर्फ वो ही practically, theoretically and legally डिस्क्वालीफाई होंगे. Question 55 again, pretty straightforward question. Directly again from the passage, first two paragraphs, that liberal UAPA हो रहा है and sedition laws का भी misuse हो रहा है. So both A and B is, I'm guessing most of you done both A and B. By the way, just for the information of all of you, those of you who are watching right now, if you have any questions that reach out to me. I am also looking at the YouTube chat every once in a while. Not too many messages flooding me or ragging me or harassing me. But just in case, if you want to drop a question anywhere, I would be more than happy to take them as well. Question number 56. Again, not a very difficult question, I thought. Not a there were, I mean, it took me more time than the usual 20 seconds जो इस paper में consistently time लग रहा था in the legal section. This question took me a little bit of time because the question begins with the PRP bill defines specified authority and whatever the definition is, DM collector, etc. And then the last part of the question is the PRP bill is criticized. So you look at the question, it says PRP bill is criticized for what reason by the Editors Guild of India, which means the question is actually much broader than the context of the question, right? Because actual context of the question only limits itself to the definition of specified authority. लेकिन यहाँ पर actual सवाल में पूरे bill के बारे में पूछ लिया है. Now, option A, I think can be rejected. Junior officers, junior officers को specified authority में डाला जा रहा है, and that's the problem, right? हाँ, police officials को क्यों डाला जा रहा है, law enforcement agencies को क्यों डाला जा रहा है? Those are things which are considered to be a challenge as far as the author is concerned. But the author doesn't really say कि junior है इसलिए problem है. Seniority, hierarchy और ये सब का challenge passage में कहीं नहीं था. So A reject हो गया तो Delhi भी साथ में reject by default हो गया because A is wrong means all of the above is also wrong, right? Now between Bombay and Calcutta, I thought C is definitely a better answer by elimination, because again the PRP bill confers various powers on the Press Registrar General, including the power to which is true, and I think that's something which is treated as a problem in the passage also. But the context of the question, इसीलिए मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि यहाँ पर question का context specified authority है, लेकिन last line में PRP bill का overall criticism पूछ रहे हैं. So overall criticism का ही complete interpretation अगर हम लेंगे, then maybe option Bombay seems like a reasonable answer, but I think C is a safer answer, and if I were giving the paper and if I'm doing the analysis also, I think C is the answer I would actually go with. 57 is one of those rare questions out of the 2-3 questions जहां पर the scope of the question is not covered in the passage, right? Passage में directly कहीं पर भी fundamental right and reasonable restrictions on fundamental rights इस बारे में directly चर्चा नहीं हो रही है. Of course, and I don't want to sound just confident, but I will be deeply disappointed if any of my students did not know कि Article 19 में reasonable restrictions होते हैं, because that's literally that is what we discuss when the topic of Article 19 is covered, right? So I hope all of you got this answer right. I think this is a little beyond the scope of the passage directly speaking, but option Bombay seems like the most reasonable answer. Fundamental rights are not absolute, and reasonable restrictions of course can be imposed. So 19 clause 1 जो दिया हुआ है, sub clause A साथ में is freedom of speech, exact context. But 19 clause 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 जो भारत के संविधान में है, all of those are of course actual restrictions on free speech. Moving on to the last question in this particular passage, the first passage that we are covering. The PRP bill denies the right to publish periodicals. अब किसको deny कर सकते हैं, किसके बारे में क्या हो रहा है? Who has been found to have committed a terrorist act, right? Which of the following is the most appropriate reason? Now, the reason again is something which is by and large covered if you look at the passage, because one of the lines in the passage says that the statement for having done anything against the security of the state. right? Terrorist or unlawful activity तो है, but against the security of the state is also a line mentioned. Now again direct derive नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, वो ये जो directly दिया हुआ है, from there you definitely have to derive a little bit, and a little bit inference, little bit derivation. Obviously option A is wrong because criminals do possess fundamental rights. Option B is also incorrect because the right to publish is denied because such a person is threat to the society. Well, threat itself is not enough. So B is not completely wrong, but C is better in my humble opinion, because the right to publish a periodical is denied because they may not be neutral in reporting and may incite violence and spread disaffection, because that's exactly what they have done earlier, right? So what does a terrorist do? It involves themselves in actual violence. And obviously, I mean, I think a graduation for a terrorist would be to motivate other people to do violence anyway, right? Like the leader of a terrorist group, वो खुद जाके कट्टा नहीं चला रहा है, but that person is motivating other people to, you know, tie bombs, throw hand grenades, and so on. So I think that's the reasoning I went with. But I think B and C दोनों reasonably safe answer है. Although I think the better answer should be option C. देखते हैं our good friends in the CLAT consortium ultimately क्या कहते हैं. The next passage was, I think, slight derivation of criminal law, but particularly focusing on the juvenile justice system, the juvenile justice board, the 16 to 18 wala exemption जो most of my students would definitely know कि हमने because we've discussed it, particularly in the, when I think we were discussing that after the Nirbhaya incident happened, the Justice J.S. Verma committee was formed, and after the Justice J.S. Verma committee was formed, they made some recommendations because one of the accused and one of the convicted people in the Nirbhaya case was actually 17 years of age, right? तो वो क्योंकि 17 का था तो उसको 3 ही साल की सजा दी गई, which is the maximum punishment under the Juvenile Justice Act. But अब देखते हैं ये तो directly, some things I think most of you would know. Some things were not direct, like the clear distinction between child in conflict with the law and child in need of care and protection. वो I think directly नहीं, you would not really usually study it in basic classroom experience. But the questions in this particular passage, I think for the lack of a better word, I'm just going to call it a joke. I mean, I cannot imagine कि इससे easy तरीके से भी और question पूछ सकते थे. What is the primary objective? Well, पहले paragraph के last line में लिखा है the ultimate goal of their rehabilitation and reintegration into the society. यही ही ultimate goal है act का. तो हम obviously mark कर सकते हैं option B for Bombay because it is absolutely directly given. Who makes up the Juvenile Justice Board? I mean, my God, like I could have just simply asked math section में अगली बार 2 का टेबल ना पूछ लें कि तक लिखिए आप, and I don't know, because इससे easy तो क्या पूछ, because again number 2 में it is directly providing कि that a metropolitan magistrate or a judicial magistrate of first class and 2 social workers, and option C में बस ये missing है that one of the 2 social workers has to be a woman. बस वो वाला part नहीं लिखा है, but otherwise it is again absolutely directly derived I think from the passage. What is the role of the Juvenile Justice Board? Again, it is specifically mentioned in वो paragraph 3 बीच में skip हो गया है, वो अगले question में cover होगा basically. But paragraph 4 again clearly says subject to preliminary assessment and other things. This assessment considers about 16 to 18 wala part, right? And the primary function of the JJB is to determine the age of the juvenile, circumstances in which the offense was committed, and whether the juvenile should be sent to special home or released on probation. So again, matlab absolutely directly given in the passage itself. So option C is the safe, obvious answer. Again, isme I don't even know if I should even explain the answer. Directly, paragraph number 3 says the act makes a clear distinction between a child in conflict with the law and a child in need of care and protection. और उसके अगले लाइन में दोनों में difference क्या है बताया है, right? So I'm going to trust all of you कि ये उसके बाद इतना बताने के बाद आप लोग अपना वैसे भी चेक करके I'm sure exam में भी कर ही दिया होगा. Option C obviously is the sorry, what is the, sorry, option 62 पे पहुंच चुके हैं हम. Yeah, option Bombay. Option Bombay of course is the absolute correct answer. 63 again very very straightforward. कब होगा? Basically preliminary assessment juvenile justice board करेगा, वो भी directly is again provided in the passage itself, not much application of mind required at all. 64 again was a very very straightforward question. What is the purpose? अभी purpose भी directly passage में दिया ही हुआ है. I think these 6 questions were literally complimentary, and everybody should have gotten 6 out of 6. I mean, at least everybody who's looking to go to a top 10 law school or top 5 law school वाले तो पक्का सारे के सारे questions सही किए होंगे. I hope. Okay. Moving on from that IQ dropping passage, let's move on to the next passage, which is again, I think it's related to a little bit of free speech, little bit of online defamation and intermediary liability. Fun fact, in my final year of law school, I was given a scholarship by Microsoft. They paid for my 5th year fees and all of that. It was particularly about intermediary liability and the liability of online service providers for third party content. So I had a lot of nostalgia when I went through this passage. Of course, उस time पे 66A हटा नहीं था, जो श्रेया सिंघल वाला passage में reference भी दिया हुआ है. So it was not, but section 79, etc., safe harbor clauses, and so many nostalgic memories that I have. And I thought the passage was probably going to be a little challenging for the students. But then I saw the questions, and once again, the questions basically take out the entire teeth from the passage. Like the passage, ठीक है, एक बार safe harbor type का एक नया word आ गया, intermediary liability, OSP liability, ये सब सुन के हो सकता है somebody might feel there's probably a little bit of challenge, but when you see the questions, it's really, I think most of you would have gotten all the questions right. 65, what is the primary focus? Obviously the primary focus is about online defamation. Role of intermediaries in online content is actually a wider discussion, and the passage is not talking about the broader discussion. The passage is talking specifically about the context of defamation and online defamation, and in that context the responsibility, safe harbors and exemptions जो हम intermediaries को provide करते हैं. So anyway, option Bombay for 65, option Bombay is the best answer. What is online defamation as defined in the passage? So again, this is the second question. एक तो वो freedom of speech वाला था, where I think prior legal knowledge was probably a little bit of a requirement. And again, this is the second question where little bit of legal knowledge would be required, because online defamation and defamation दोनों का definition अलग से नहीं दिया हुआ है, which is defamation on the online platform is basically online defamation, right? But whether the statements have to be false or not, whether truth is an absolute defense, to defamation or not, ये वाला aspect is not directly covered anywhere in the passage. Right, so you would probably, it will be more helpful if you know that false statements made on the internet that harm someone's reputation, which is directly in line with the definition of defamation. बस वो on internet वाला part add कर दिया. Internet हटा दो तो वो defamation का definition है. Internet add कर दिया तो वो online defamation हो गया. So it's not a difficult question, and anyway the other options are easily rejectable, for the lack of a better word. So therefore, I'm sure most of you would have anyway done option Bombay. 67, again, it's just absolutely directly provided. It provides for safe harbor for intermediaries कि अगर सरकार ने बताया है, court ने बताया है, and then there is defamatory content, you just have to remove it from your platform, and then you can be absolved of all liability. So once again, absolutely directly. So इसमें 67 will be question number 67. Option Bombay will be the right answer. 68, once again, there are only 2 conditions where intermediaries have to act mandatorily. Mandatorily, they have to act if there is a valid court order or a government directive. So again, directly given in the passage, ज़्यादा difficult बिल्कुल भी नहीं था. तो 68 option Bombay था. 69, how does the Indian legal system balance? Well, again, isme the last paragraph of the passage, online defamation cases often involve a balancing act, right? So, when I take my classes, particularly after the format has changed into this passage structure, even in the legal section, you ask any of my students, hope students remember, whoever has come to me for a tip on how to do the legal section, I've always said, आप passage को एक बार पढ़ो, but don't try to understand the passage fully. What you should be trying to do is make bullet points ki which paragraph talks about what thing. Like in this particular passage, if you know a lot of you have the question paper in front of you, I can just take you back to the, sorry, I'll just take a minute. But say if you look at this passage, paragraph number 1 is simply talking about the broad idea or the introduction of what is online defamation, kya kya hota hai, right? Paragraph 2 is about section 79. You can just highlight it there, mentally take a picture. Next paragraph is about Shreya Singhal and restriction, ki court order or ye wo. And then the next paragraph is, so making these bullet points, like for the first 3 paragraphs, how I did this will not take me like minutes and minutes. This will just take me a few seconds, and I've just made bullet points. So similarly, when I go to the last paragraph, online defamation often involves balance. So balancing act between. So मतलब balance की बात हो रही है वो आखिरी passage में. Once you make it a habit, I mean, those of you who have not made it a habit, of course, it's not as easy as I'm making it sound. थोड़ा सा आदत डालनी पड़ती है. But once you've made that habit, you'll be able to identify these keywords. And then you know कि अच्छा balance के बारे में पूछ रहा है question number 69 में. So then you know that you simply have to go to the last paragraph. So last paragraph में again directly you will find that it is obviously option C for Calcutta, Chennai, whatever you want to call it. Okay, question number 70. What must the plaintiff prove? Obviously that the statement is false and there was reputation and it was done with intention. Ho now, obviously good intention to ho nahi sakta. It is made with a degree of fault. Anyway, the other options are quite horrible, just to be clear. So by default, option Delhi would be the right answer. Okay, now question number 71 is, I don't know how to put it in the, every year when the CLAT exam happens, the day of the CLAT exam, I wake up with a very deep and solemn hope that this year, in this examination, the CLAT organizing committee and whoever has made the question paper, hopefully, is not going to make mistakes. For example, here at CLAT Possible, we make about 40 mocks in one batch, right? I mean, for one season. For this CLAT to the next CLAT, the students who will work with us, who will enroll with us, who will have the privilege and hopefully the joy of studying with us, they'll give about 40 odd mocks. Then there are practice mocks and class sheets and worksheets and so on. When we make that many mocks in class sheets, every once in a while there's an error. But if we had a bunch of people making one question paper in a full year, I promise you, I don't think there will be too many wrong questions in question paper. I think there will be 0 questions. So the formality के लिए मैं कह रहा हूँ कि there will not be too many mistakes. I think there will be 0 mistakes. But consistently the CLAT has, you know, scrapped questions, given incomplete questions, unsolvable questions. They've changed answers. All of this has happened not once, not twice, not thrice. It's just endless number of times. Question number 71 is one such question in, I think, in the whole legal section. This is the only question. I thought charon actually galat hai. So you look at, for example, you look at the passage. Let's go option by option so that I can reject them properly. You go back to the passage and you will see the last but one paragraph. The court also emphasized that the intermediaries should not take a proactive role in monitoring content, as this could potentially infringe on free speech. Should not take a proactive role. Okay, so option A gets rejected because the question is, what is the role of intermediaries in the context of online defamation? Option A says to actively monitor and censor content. So they should not be actively monitoring and censoring content, right? Option B onwards, I think more easily rejectable actually. to act upon private contents, private complaints for content removal. So that's definitely not their role. They are, and then previous questions also we have solved in the same passage, कि court का order होगा या government का directive होगा, only then they have to remove it. So option Bombay becomes incorrect. Option Delhi is also incorrect because to encourage online defamation obviously is not the role of intermediaries, right? And I mean, for God's sake, I hope that's not the correct answer. So obviously that cannot be the role. Now, bacha option C. Now, option C is not wholly wrong, so to say, to completely absolve themselves. I hope English का problem नहीं हो रहा है यहाँ पर कि absolve मतलब to exempt themselves, which now there are safe harbor clauses, there are other clauses. यहाँ पे theory of absolution की बात जरूर हो रही है. But the role of intermediaries cannot be to absolve themselves of liability. So I think all four options are incorrect. I mean, if you look at the language, it says what is the role, not what is their agenda or what is their intention, what is it that they want to do. इस type का language नहीं है. The language is what is the role of intermediaries. अभी role तो ये नहीं हो सकता कि अपना liability हटाना है. काम ये नहीं है कि अपनी liability हटानी है. काम कुछ और है. They're providing as third-party media content or providing a platform for independent content creators, and particularly if there is government or court directive, then they have to do that degree of protection as well. So safe answer probably C. If a gun to my head, if I had to choose an option, I would probably go with option C. But otherwise, I think all four options are incorrect, and I think the total marks for the CLAT 2023-24 examination should be 119, because ये वाला question cancel होना चाहिए, and all four options are incorrect. Let's see what the consortium says, and then मामला court में तो जाएगा ही, in my humble opinion. Anyway, the next passage again, not a very difficult passage. This was simply about the point that if there is a child, family law and succession to property and inheritance और ज़मीन जायदाद और यही सब बातें हैं, where notional partition I thought was a slightly tricky concept, but again not too many difficult questions on the concept of notional partition. The simple concept covered in this whole passage is the fact that there is a child born out of a void or avoidable marriage also. That child will still have a right to ancestral succession and general property succession of the parents, right? Now, again, like I said, questions not very difficult. Slightly lengthy question. I hope none of you got scared of, oh my God, complicated. It's not at all complicated. One of the parties was basically illegitimate, right? So would Gogol inherit? Gogol would inherit, definitely. It doesn't matter whether Gogol is a child born out of a void marriage or a voidable marriage, क्योंकि दोनों केस में ही availability होना चाहिए, without prejudice of course to the inheritance of other legal heirs including Arpita. So option C, safe answer here. इसमें Bombay और Calcutta में I hope none of you got it wrong. The void या voidable marriage अगर होगा तो child को जरूर जो भी property का हिस्सा है वो मिलेगा. But please understand that void and voidable marriage में, particularly void marriage में, the woman or the husband, whatever, they are not really husband and wife in any case. So basically the first wife is the valid wife and the second wife is not a wife. You can keep calling her a wife, but she's just a random woman who's not related to in any manner whatsoever. So the only people who would be eligible are Sushma, Arpita and Gogol, not Ashima. Therefore option C here is the best answer, right? Now again 74, pretty straightforward. I mean, Bombay and Chennai may there could be some degree of confusion, but I think Calcutta or Chennai, whatever, is the safer option. The amended provisions grant legitimate status to the children from void avoidable marriages, and therefore this should also extend to the Hindu Succession Act. Should होना जरूरी नहीं है, अभी हुआ नहीं है, right? And we've had some major amendments to the Hindu Succession Act in 2005 also. Stuff has happened, but anyway, it should translate, and that's what Chief Justice of India, Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud, was saying as well. So option C, pretty safe answer. Well, I mean, we've been almost more than 1 month, approximately 1 month for Diwali, but this definitely reminded, I think, all of you whoever is from the UP East Belt or UP at least कि proper अयोध्या के राजा रामचंद्र की बात हो रही है, कौशल्या दशरथ के नंदन, Ram and Lakshman and all of that, but the question itself was not at all complicated. Both Ram and Lakshman obviously can inherit father's share irrespective of the voidable status of their parents' marriage, again directly, because that's the whole summary of the passage. So option Bombay उसमें correct answer होना चाहिए. 76 again straightforward, same बात है कि I don't know if option A could be drafted better, because thanks to the Supreme Court judgment doesn't seem like a legal language, but ठीक है, it's not incorrect language, therefore option A. इसमें सेम बात हो रही है कि भाई वही है, सेकेंड वाइफ एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, तो वॉइड मैरिज है, तो वॉइड मैरिज है नहीं है, उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. द चाइल्ड विल हैव अ राइट टू प्रॉपर्टी. ओके, सो ऑप्शन ए था. 77 अगेन इज ऑप्शन ए. जजमेंट ओनली टॉक्स अबाउट द राइट्स ऑफ चिल्ड्रन, नॉट द इलेजिटिमेट वाइफ और द वॉइड मैरिज में जो वाइफ है उसके प्रॉपर्टी के बारे में ऑब्वियसली कहीं भी बात नहीं हो रही है. एंड द लास्ट क्वेश्चन इन दिस पैसेज is about option. The correct answer is of course option Bombay. इसीलिए मैंने कहा था शुरू में that there is a little bit of complexity about this notional partition, but basically hypothetical. Notional मतलब hypothetical कि actually partition हुआ नहीं है, but हम मान के चल रहे हैं कि अगर partition होता then what would be the consequences and how much share would this man get, and जो इस man को मिलना है फिर उस हिसाब से इस बच्चे का हिस्सा भी हम निकाल सकते हैं. So that's the logic that really is applicable in this question, and I think Bombay is a pretty safe way to do this. The last one was again about Digital Persons Data Protection Bill. Again, a recent law which was in the newspapers, and whenever I take an orientation of a new batch at CLAT Possible, there are only 4 things that I say most importantly. कि क्लासेस मत मिस करो, मॉक्स जरूर देना शुरू करो, पास्ट ईयर पेपर जरूर करो. बट द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट आई से, rather than these 3 things also, the first thing that I always say is please read the newspapers, because it will improve your GK, it will improve your legal GK, it will improve your English, if not speaking then reading, and that's what you need to do in the CLAT examination. So those of you who've been reading newspapers, those of you who've attended the classes, those of you who've given the mocks here at CLAT Possible, you've seen these kind of questions, you've seen these kind of passages, you've studied these topics in the classrooms as well. The Digital Person Data Protection Act के questions again difficult कहीं से भी नहीं थे. Can the personal data be used until the research is complete? Absolutely. वही बात हो रही है कि जहाँ पर necessary for research है, for archiving and statistical purposes, तो जब तक रिसर्च हो रहा है तब तक पर्सनल डेटा ऑब्वियसली यूज कर सकते हैं. 79 ऑप्शन ए इज द करेक्ट आंसर. 80 में दिस इज अगेन इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल दिस इज अ नेशनलाइज्ड बैंक, सो वंस अगेन स्टेट एजेंसी is something that you can probably treat it as, but even if you don't, one way or the other, the bank can obviously process the data for the purpose of ascertaining liability. Now, the problem with option Bombay is basically the fact that family, wife, children, brothers, in सबका there is no major challenge that there is no right also in the first place. So Bombay is not correct. Obviously, A way का तो कोई बात ही नहीं हो रही है. Option C is by default the safer answer in question number 80. 81 once again I thought was a little tricky, and this is the third and I think the last question जिसमें there is a little bit of prior legal knowledge or outside legal knowledge that was probably required. 3 ही question थे in the whole section, barely 10% of the questions, but this particular question it's really a little bit of a coin toss between option C and D. Where does the DPDA apply? It applies only in India obviously, because भारत का law, भारत का parliament ने बनाया, तो जबरदस्ती न्यूजीलैंड में तो apply होगा नहीं. Christchurch and Wellington, and so it's not really going to happen, and that's why I think option C is the best answer. But you see, option Delhi is not wholly incorrect if you think about it. Now the point is, option Delhi, the reason I rejected it is because I think even if 2021 में वो काम कर रहा था and the data is still with the with the MNC, if DPDA can be applied outside India, it cannot be, but if it can be applied, तो जब भी लॉ आएगा उसके बाद तो अप्लाई करके हम एनीवे पर्सनल डेटा प्रोटेक्शन एटसेट्रा के रूल्स को that company would still be bound by it. So I think between either ways, I mean whether it is a previous retrospective effect of the law का एंगल पे आप जाओ कि एक्स पोस्ट फैक्टो लॉ है ये इसलिए नहीं अप्लाई करेंगे, या तो एक्स्ट्रा टेरिटोरियल एप्लीकेशन पे जाओ विच इज बोथ आर नॉट कवर्ड इन द पैसेज, बट सी आई थिंक इज द बेस्ट आंसर हियर. 82, I'm not even going to discuss this question. Correct answer is option A. Obviously is pretty straightforward, not A matlab I mean all of the above. Option A nahi main keh raha hu, I mean all of the above. Name, residential address, Aadhaar number, obviously all of them are required, not much to explain directly from the passage. The last two questions, 83, I think both of these things, because one is about security and law and order issues, so robberies and so on, and the other one is about a threat to law and order. So whether it is an actual threat or it is about criminal investigation, ये दोनों चीज में data protection is not an absolute privilege. Right to privacy can be, that corporate veil or whatever can be breached. So therefore both A and B would be the correct answer. And for the last question, obviously again last paragraph of the passage already dealt with that aspect कि government अगर चाहे तो वो different purpose भी बता सकती है. They can the government is not bound by purpose limitations allowing data collected for one specified purpose to be used for a new incompatible purpose also, which means basically that it can be used for whatever purpose, right? So therefore I think 84 should be option Bombay, and that pretty much wraps up the legal section. What do you guys think would be a good score? I'm not sure. I don't know how it went. I don't know if you agree with all of the answers. But rest assured, most of the answers would be correct. Out of the total 30 questions, my thought process, and after having conversation with a lot of students, and those of you who have not seen it, we also had the first impressions here at the CLAT Possible YouTube channel, where we also spoke to the students, our students who were visiting all across the country in the Prayagraj Center, Mumbai, Kanpur, Lucknow. So we spoke with a lot of our students. And the impression was, of course, the paper is easy, CR में challenge था, maths थोड़ा सा lengthy था, एक passage, etc. But legal में खैर किसी ने नहीं बोला. So I think for the top 3 law school, upwards of 25 out of 30, which I know it's a staggering score, but really like 3-4 questions छोड़ के कितना ही गलत हो गया होगा. So and if you got 4 questions wrong and you marked all 30 questions, then 26 correct, 26 minus 1 mark to 25 तब भी touch कर रहा है. So I think 25 and above for a top 3 law school, but 22 odd for a top 10, 15, maybe the last law schools would be the good score. All the very best, everyone. Let's wait for the CLAT consortium to come out with the answer key. Then we'll file our writ petitions about whatever you think is wholly incorrect. Question number 71, I think the question itself is, and all 4 options are incorrect. Let's see how it all evolves, and we'll take it from there. And of course, all through the journey, all of us here, including the legal team at CLAT Possible, will be with you every step of the way. Do feel free to reach out to us if you have any further concerns about any of the questions or otherwise whatever concerns you might have. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and a very, very good night to all of you.
Okay, hi, welcome to the YouTube analysis. Now in this section, we are going to be taking the analysis of the quant. If you look at the section, there were 2 sets. One set which was based on cars, diesel, petrol, and the second set was based on a division between casual wage workers and self-employed, right? When you are attempting this section, the first thing is which set are you attempting? So the set which had the numbers that were
Easy
doable,
numbers,
that was the one that you should have done, and we had 6 easy questions in that set. The second set, which was, you know, on the self-employed person, casual workers and regular salaried employed one, had a lot of calculation. So what we feel is that you should have scored anything above 6 in this. 6 out of 12 is a doable score, because the first set could have been easily cracked. You should have given about 7 to 8 minutes to the first set and about 7 to 8 minutes to the second set. In the second set, couple of questions you could have avoided the calculation, but overall, yes, 3 questions could have been done. So overall, we are looking at a good score of anything which is around 8 to 9. Anything above 9 is just brilliant, and anything above 6 is decent. Right?
Decent.
But a brilliant score in this would be anything above 9, because the second set, which was about, you know, the working population, etc., had a lot of calculation. So there is a chance that there could be errors there, right? Because there was calculation. One more thing I want to mention is that the only thing, or the only maths that the quant section has, you know, tested is addition, subtraction and percentage change, which is A minus B upon B. Addition you all know, subtraction you all know. So there's nothing from mixtures and solutions or time, speed, distance or time in work or number system or probability.
And the most important thing which I want to add here, because when consortium released the sample question, they asked 1 or 2 a little bit logical based DI. So what other people started doing, they were asking CAT level questions in their mocks. That was ridiculous. Probability, they asked probability based set. How can they ask probability based set in CLAT exam? That's not possible. And you can see again, this was similar to 2020, as we have discussed, similar to 2022 paper. Percentage, ratio, that's it.
Yeah, June CLAT 2022
June
paper.
CLAT,
Yeah, so I think if you look at the overall paper, the mathematics section, you know, people who were able to crack the working population set, critical reasoning section, 4 or 5 questions in the GK section, they would be the decider for the top 2, top 3 national law schools here. Okay, now coming to the first set, now this set is, so what we'll do is just give you a basic idea about how the set has to be cracked. So basically it's a caselet, and in a caselet, we convert that into a table format. So whatever data has been given to us, we have converted for your convenience into a table format. So Abhishek, can we just move on to the table format and convert this data? Yeah. So, so we are given 3 categories here. One is self-employed, one is casual wage workers, and regular salaried people. The total population is given to us, which is 3 lakh. Then a bifurcation is given of this total population, which is 48% and 52%. We have calculated urban total as 1,56,000 and rural total as 1,44,000. And then the individual breakup is given. For instance, self-employed is 40%, rural is 56%. Now 40% of what? Abhishek, can you just explain that now a little bit more?
Yeah, so total population was 3 lakh, and it is mentioned here ki out of 3 lakh, 48% was rural population. So this data you need to calculate 3 lakh, 48% of 3 lakh, 1,44,000.
So just one thing, when you have to calculate, for instance, 52% of 156, one is that you can, so it's an easy number for you. So you just have to do 52 into 3 and therefore a 156 come, or you can just find out 50% of 3 lakh, which is 150. And then if you have to find out 2% of 3 lakh is 6,000, so that becomes 156. You could have also done this.
Over.
Yeah.
And they have given this data 56%, 40%, 48%, 12%. Last line was unnecessary. There was no need 32% and this 12%, because when you get this value, this value will automatically come, and when you get this value and this value will automatically come. So there is no need to mention this last line, but that's good. 48%, 12%, 40%. This tabulation will take hardly, I'll say, 3 to 4 minutes. Then we can move to solve question. And can we discuss question one by one?
Yes, please. So the first question here, by what percentage the number of self-employed workers in rural areas? Now that's mentioned here, self-employed in rural area, which is coming to 8640, more than the number of self-employed workers in the urban area. Self-employed in urban area is 62400. So what we just have to see is a percentage difference. Now here also, what you are doing is 8640 minus 62400 upon 62400. This is the calculation that we are supposed to do here.
18,240 over 62,400.
Now just one trick here that you could possibly use, because the options are quite close. So there is one option, there are 3 options above 30%, one option is below 30%. So just find out what is 624 into 3. So Abhishek, just do that. 624 into
so
3
if
will
we
come to
calculate-
1872.
Yeah, 624.
624 into 3. 6 3s are 18, 24 3s are 72. So that will be 1872. Uska jo numerator hai, that is 1824. So definitely the answer has to be less than 30%. Therefore 3 options are eliminated, which is B, C, D. Therefore the answer will be A. So this is a shortcut that you can use here. You don't have to necessarily multiply. Just find out into 3, and this you can do mentally and get the answer, right? Next one, Abhishek. What is the ratio of the urban and rural working population? Now what is urban here? Working population?
Urban is 1,56,000 and rural is 1,44,000.
So this data is given to you. This was the first data that you calculated.
Yes.
So all that we are doing is 156, 144. We know it's multiple of 12. So that's 13 is to 12. So this was a very simple question. So you see the key here is just putting that into a table format, right? Abhishek, what I would want you to do is just tell them how did you convert this into a table format? Just go to the previous slide and just tell that, because all the questions are quite obvious here. So just tell them how do we interpret this data and convert this into a table format.
So usually when I got the paper, I started solving this set. I just did the question first. So this question, because the questions were single line, and in the previous year जो भी 2023 में दिसंबर में हुआ था, 2022 दिसंबर में जो पेपर हुआ था, प्रॉब्लम वहाँ पे क्या थी कि क्वेश्चंस वर लेंदी, 18 लाइंस के, 14 लाइंस के क्वेश्चंस है. तो व्हाट आई एनकाउंटर्ड कि यार सारे क्वेश्चन सिंगल लाइन के हैं, तो उसमें देखते हैं कि सबसे इजी वाला हाँ कैसे कर सकते हैं. तो यहाँ पे जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल शाइन कर रहा है. अच्छा ओके. सो self-employed were regular salaried employees and rural. So I made table 3 categories: self-employed, casual wage workers, regular salaried, and total. Self-employed is a key source of income of both rural and urban areas, but it is more prevalent in rural areas. 56% of rural population than in urban areas. 40% of the urban. Rural population was 48%. So 50% of 3 lakh is 1,50,000. 1% will be that is 1% of 3 lakh will be 3,000. 2% is that is 6,000. तो 1,50,000 से 6,000 पीछे आना है और अर्बन एरियाज में 1,50,000 से 6,000 आगे जाना है. तो दिस विल बी 1,56,000 फॉर अर्बन एरियाज एंड 1,44,000 ऑफ रूरल एरियाज. नाउ द लाइन इज 56% ऑफ रूरल पॉपुलेशन आर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड. सो आई नीड टू कैलकुलेट 56% ऑफ 1,44,000. So 1,44,000 का 56% we need to calculate. So here I have calculated. मैंने डायरेक्ट इसको 56 से मल्टीप्लाई कर लिया. Now next point is 40% of urban population. 1,56,000 का 40% कैलकुलेट करना है. डायरेक्ट यू कैन मल्टीप्लाई 1560 into 4. 10% अगर आप ले लो 1560 that is 10%. 40% just multiplied by 4, you will get 624,000. So 40% can be easily calculated. ये आ गई हमारे पास में value. Now next line is written कि regular salaried workers in urban areas were 48% of the urban population. Again 48% of urban population. 156,000 का 48% calculate करना. But we will not multiply it like 156,000 into 48 upon 100. This will take a little bit time. What we'll do, 1,56,000, just calculate 50%. 50% is how much? That is half. So 1,56,000, that is 78,000. sorry, and multiplied and subtract 2% from it. 10% is 1560, 20%, 2% is that is 3000 and 6120. So 3120 just subtracted, you will get 74,880. Now remaining 48%, 40%. So this will be 12%. 12% you can easily calculate. 10% it is written, that is 15600, and 2% you have already calculated before for calculation of 48%. तो 2% वहाँ पे हम ऑलरेडी एक बार कैलकुलेट कर चुके हैं, सिर्फ ऐड करना था, तो ये वैल्यू आ गई. सिमिलरली इसमें से जब ये दोनों वैल्यू सब्ट्रैक्ट करेंगे तो ये जो 2% आप जो भी निकाल रहे हो ना, वो दो जगह पे यूज हो जा रहा है. तो ये स्मार्टली आप इसको कर सकते थे. हाँ, सम ऑफ द स्टूडेंट माइट हैव स्पेंड अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम व्हाइल tabulating, but I am saying कि hardly it will take 3 to 4 minutes, 5 minutes to tabulate the data. Now the questions are very easy. So
just one point here, when we are doing 144,000 का 56%, there also we can use that 2% here.
2%.
Because one is 50% इसका, जैसे मुझे 56% निकालना है इसका सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड का, तो इसका 50% जो हो गया वो हो गया 72,000 I'm sorry. और हमें 6% निकालना है. 2% हमें पता है, 1% हमें पता है 1440 है, तो 2% पता है तो ठीक है, अदरवाइज इंटू 6 कर दिया और वो हमने इसमें ऐड कर दिया. तो 1440 into 6 is added to it and we get 8640. तो जहां हो सके work through percentage method, find out 10%, 2%, 1%, 5%. अब जैसे मुझे 5% निकालना है किसी चीज का, तो हमने 10% निकाला और 10% का आधा कर दिया. तो avoid multiplication, that's where you can save time.
And this question was jackpot. What is the ratio of urban and rural working? एक लाइन आपने पढ़ी, आपको कैलकुलेशन ही नहीं करनी थी. 48% is rural population, so obviously 52% was urban population. So simply ratio will be 13:12.
And you know one more thing in this question, हमें पता है कि जो urban population है वो rural से ज्यादा है. अगर तुम यहाँ पे ऑप्शंस देखोगे A, B और D, मतलब करने की भी कोई जरूरत नहीं है,
कोई जरूरत नहीं.
अर्बन जो है वो रूरल से ज्यादा है, हमें वो ऑप्शन देखना है, तो 13:12 ही होगा.
तो ये अगर जिनका पेपर छूट रहा था, एक सेट कर लिया था, जल्दबाजी में क्वेश्चन पिक करना था, जस्ट रीड द पैसेज एंड सॉल्व इट विद इन 30-40 seconds you can solve.
Yes.
Now this one, if urban population of the region increased from 52% to 56% and percentage of self-employed in urban region remains same, then number of self-employed people in urban areas are. Simple calculation, we just need to 3 lakh था, उसका direct 56% निकालना है. We need to ignore 52%. 3 lakh का 56% we need to calculate, that is 1,68,000. Yes, 56%, 56 into 3, 168. So 168,000. Now, and percentage of self-employed in urban areas remains same. So self-employed in urban areas, that is 40%. So you need to calculate 40% of 168,000. So 10% will be 168,000, 40% just 4 times. Multiply 4 8s are 32. 2 आना चाहिए 2 0 के बाद में, बाकी कैलकुलेशन भी नहीं करनी. यू कैन मार्क आंसर.
So see the key what Abhishek just said is that आखिरी का जो आंसर होगा उसमें 2 है, तो इतना मल्टीप्लाई करने की जरूरत नहीं है. हमें 8 into 4 करना है, आखिरी का जो डिजिट आएगा वो 2 है. 2 खाली एक ऑप्शन में है यहाँ पे, which is option number D. So we don't have to find out 67200. We just have to find out the last digit has to be 2, and we save time there.
So the next one is what is the total number of regular salaried employees in the region? So regular salaried employees in the
is going to be an addition of urban and rural.
So 80, 880 and 280. If you add it, 120. Last 3 digits will be should be 60. 160. So C option, because 80 हमारा 160 हो गया और 8 और 2 हमारा 10 हो गया, तो 0 आ रहा है, तो उसको ऐड करेंगे तो दैट इज 160 लास्ट 3 डिजिट, या डायरेक्ट ऐड कर लो तो भी आंसर आ जाएगा. मतलब इजी था. नाउ दिस वन कैलकुलेशन यहाँ पे था, व्हाट इज द परसेंटेज ऑफ रेगुलर सैलरीड एम्प्लॉयज इन रूरल एरियाज करस्पॉन्डिंग टू द नंबर ऑफ कैजुअल वेज वर्कर्स इन अर्बन एरिया. व्हाट इज द परसेंटेज ऑफ, मैंने एक बार क्लियर कर दूं, व्हाट इज द परसेंटेज ऑफ रेगुलर सैलरीड एम्प्लॉयड.
So we are looking at 17 to its regular salaried. Abhishek, the third one.
Oh, sorry.
Regular salaried 17 to 80 upon 18720.
18720. 20.
Now again, if you look at the option, you have two answer options in 70s. One is in 88 and one is 90. Now ऐसे दिख ही रहा है 17/18 अगर रेशियो भी तुम करोगे, that is almost 90% के अराउंड है. मतलब 1/18 is actually 5.55%. So it's about 95%, right? So we are going to look at anything between 95, I mean around 90%. तो सीधा हम 18720 को 9 से मल्टीप्लाई कर देते हैं. तो जहां 9 से मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे, आंसर थोड़ा सा इससे कम, मतलब न्यूमरेट इस वैल्यू इससे थोड़ा सा कम आएगा. ये 17280 इससे थोड़ा ज्यादा है, तो आंसर 92.3 हो गया. अगेन एलिमिनेशन ऑफ ऑप्शन, राइट? सो two things here. If I know the ratio 17/18, 17/18 is nothing but 1 minus 1/18, which is nothing but 94.55. Now the answer will be close to it, right? So I know my answer is close to 95%. My first strike is 92.3 होना चाहिए. अब मुझे इसको कंफर्म करना है. मैं इसको 18720 को into 9 कर दूंगा और आंसर निकाल लूंगा कितना मेरी वैल्यू आ रही है. अभिषेक, just multiply it. I'll just show this method एक बार. Just multiply this
by 9.
हाँ, by into 9. 1872 into 9 कितना वैल्यू आ रहा है? Okay, so we get 17348. So what is the answer for this? You can just check once again.
Excellent. 9 sorry, 1684.
So we get 16848 and we want 17280. So definitely our answer is more than 90%. The point that we are trying to make here is do not find the exact value. We need to just do approximate.
हम ऐसे ही देख रहे हैं 17/18.
उससे भी ऑप्शन पता लग जाएगा और into 9 करके भी हम लोग एक आइडिया ले सकते हैं कि आंसर 90% से ज्यादा है. तो एलिमिनेशन ऑफ ऑप्शन, हम ऑप्शंस को एज पार्ट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस यूज करें and we eliminate the options.
So why we are discussing these kind of technique in this set, because this is the only set in the whole paper जहाँ पे कुछ shortcut कुछ trick apply कर सकते. सेकंड में तो वो भी नहीं करना है, सेकंड सेट में तो वो भी नहीं करना है. यहीं पे थोड़ा स्मार्टली करके थोड़ा टाइम बचा सकते हैं. और कहीं पे कुछ है ही नहीं इसमें. इस पेपर वाज इजी, बस आपके पास ये कैसे आपने हैंडल किया उस पर डिपेंड करता है. नाउ दिस इज यू वांट टू एक्सप्लेन दिस?
नो, यू एक्सप्लेन.
ओके, नाउ पीपल आर कंफ्यूज हियर. सम ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स आर आस्किंग कि आंसर शुड बी 3:2, but the correct answer is 1813. Why I am saying this? It is saying if 60% of total working population of the region, people stop there after reading this line. यही रीजन पढ़ने के बाद में लोग रोक दे रहे हैं और वो ये सोच रहे हैं कि 60% ऑफ टोटल वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन ऑफ रीजन, जो रीजन की पूरी पॉपुलेशन है 3 लाख, उसमें से 60% लोग आर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड, जबकि ये सिर्फ रूरल एरियाज की बात कर रहा है. द क्वेश्चन की लाइन ये होनी चाहिए 60% ऑफ टोटल वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन ऑफ द रीजन वर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड इन रूरल एरियाज. अगर मैं यहाँ पे एक कॉमा लगा दूं इन रूरल एरियाज, तो क्वेश्चन की लैंग्वेज ये है कि रूरल एरियाज की जो पॉपुलेशन है, जिस क्वेश्चन की लोग यहाँ तक पढ़ के छोड़ दे रहे हैं एंड पीपल आर डूइंग मिस्टेक. ठीक है, सम ऑफ मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट हैव डन दिस मिस्टेक, लेकिन ये गलत है. यहाँ पे क्या होगा, रूरल एरियाज की जितनी भी वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन है, टोटल वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन इन रूरल एरियाज, आउट ऑफ दैट वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन इन रूरल एरियाज 60% आर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड, विच इज ऑलरेडी गिवन एज 56%. उसको 60% करना है. तो मतलब जो रूरल एरियाज की जो भी पॉपुलेशन है, दैट इज 1,44,000, इसका 60% हमें क्या करना है, ये सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड है, जो कि पहले ऑलरेडी कितना दिया होता, 56%. नाउ रीड द सेकेंड लाइन. आगे की पढ़ोगे तो और क्लैरिटी आएगी. एंड 40% ऑफ टोटल पॉपुलेशन वर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड इन अर्बन एरियाज. अर्बन एरियाज की जो पॉपुलेशन, अगर मैं यहाँ पे कॉमा लगा दूं फॉर क्लैरिटी, इन अर्बन एरियाज 40% ऑफ टोटल पॉपुलेशन वर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड. बस आप इस पार्ट को अगर पहले समझोगे तो क्लैरिटी आएगी कि अर्बन एरियाज की जो पॉपुलेशन है उसका 40% जो है वो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड है. तो मतलब 1,56,000 का 40% वर सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड, और इसका हमें रेशियो निकालना था. नाउ व्हाट पीपल डिड, लोगों ने मिस्टेक क्या की कि भाई टोटल पॉपुलेशन 3 लाख है, उन्होंने सोचा कि 60% ऑफ वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड इन रूरल एरियाज, तो मतलब 1,80,000 वो रूरल एरियाज में टोटल सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड हो जाएंगे, और 1,20,000 वो अर्बन एरियाज में टोटल सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड हो जाएंगे, तो मतलब बाकी वैल्यू जीरो हो गई। तो वो तो डायरेक्टली पूरा करने की जरूरत क्या थी, फिर तो 60% और 40% का डायरेक्ट रेशियो ले लो और फिर उसका रेशियो 3:2 आएगा। तो दैट इज रॉन्ग, क्योंकि लैंग्वेज ये नहीं बोल रही। उन्होंने जो ऑप्शन तो दिए 2:3 और 3:3, दे ट्राइड टू ट्रैप यू कि आप वहां पे वो गलती करो, वो मिस्टेक करो। अगर तुम्हें कैलकुलेट करना है इसकी वैल्यू, जब कैलकुलेट करोगे तो ये आएगा 18:13। हमें इतना करने की जरूरत भी नहीं है, मैं समझाने के लिए मैंने इतना किया।
और ये कैलकुलेशन में भी when you're doing this calculation, when you're doing 60, just write down Abhishek, 60 into 156.
60,
Just write 60 into 156.
no, so 60 into 144 रूरल एरियाज का 60 है।
हाँ, 60 into 144
144 into 60
is to
156 into
40.
40।
So we are looking at a ratio of 3:2, और दूसरे वाले का जो रेशियो आ रहा है 12:13 आ रहा है, 12:13, right?
Yes.
And that's how you get, वो 2 6 से काटेगा तो 18:13 का आंसर आ गया।
16 18
yeah.
ratio. And now see, if the answer would have 3:2 or 2:3, why would I have given this option 18:13 if they are considering this 0 and 0? No, that is wrong. यहाँ पे ये जो है ना, बस कॉमा की मिस्टेक भी नहीं बोलूंगा मैं, अगर वो मिसिंग है, कॉमा मिसिंग है, इसलिए लोगों को कंफ्यूजन हो रही है। अगर ये कॉमा लगा
तो टोटल वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन इन रूरल एरिया, उसका 60% लोग एम्प्लॉयड है, और 40% ऑफ टोटल वर्किंग पॉपुलेशन इन अर्बन एरिया वो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड है। ठीक है,
ये दिया हुआ है।
Let's move to the other set now.
ये लोगों को कंफ्यूजन थी, तो
Yeah.
that's why we are discussing this now.
So this was a decider set in DI because this was a slight difficult,
हाँ,
I mean
दो-तीन-
moderate level of
दो-तीन
difficulty
questions
where you
लगा
could
थे।
have just played smart with calculation, and out of the questions that were given here, 2 or 3 questions you could easily use some tricks here like we explained here.
Now the next set, this is the easiest one. So total data was collected 8,000, 4 states.
So we have 3 things here: diesel engine, petrol engine, and electric car. Total number of cars is given 8,000. We have 4 states here. The breakup is given of cars in the ratio of 3:4:1 for state 1. For state 2, अच्छा ये भी दिया हुआ है कितने नंबर ऑफ कार्स है, जो 15% दिया हुआ है वो 8,000 का 15% है। सिमिलरली स्टेट 2 का 20% है 8,000 का, स्टेट 3 का 30% है 8,000 का, और स्टेट 4 का 35% है 8,000 का। सबका ब्रेकअप दिया हुआ है, ये ब्रेकअप के रिजल्ट है।
And numbers are beautiful.
And numbers are quite easy. They are easy numbers to handle. अब इसी numbers के basis में आपको calculation करना है।
कहीं पे कुछ भी there is not a single question where we need कुछ अलग सा दिमाग चाहिए हो, और बहुत ही easy question। मतलब if you see, if 45% of the electric cars in state 4 are air conditioners, so कितने में air condition नहीं है? 55%. So electric car in state 4 400, उसका 55% निकालना है। सो 50% हो गया, 205% हो गया, 220 विल बी द आंसर। मतलब यू डोंट नीड पेन आफ्टर टेबुलेटिंग दिस, यू डोंट नीड पेन टू सॉल्व दिस क्वेश्चन। लाइक द नेक्स्ट वन इज दिस
State 2 petrol cars, which is 480, and we are comparing it with diesel car in state 1, which is 450. So 30 का difference है। बेस क्या है मेरा यहाँ पे, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, वो 450 है। 3/45 is 1/15, which is 6.66%. So you should be comfortable with ratio. You should know what is 1/15, so it is 6.66.
The next
Right.
one
So I
is-
would recommend that, you know, CLAT 2025 or future CLAT aspirants who are watching this video, you must be very comfortable with the ratio. You should know all the ratios till 1/30, and not just that. If you're getting a value, like in the previous question we saw, 17/18. What was that? 17/18. So that's, if you know
that is more than
1/18 is
90%.
5.55%, it becomes very easy. So what is the ratio in state 4 to electric cars? Again, from the data, you just have the values here.
State 4 electric car, that is 400. नहीं. What is the ratio of the diesel cars in state 4? Diesel car in state 4, that is 1400. 2 electric cars in state 3. State 3 electric cars, that
600.
is 600. So simple ratio is 7 ratio. मतलब you should not, मतलब एक बार टेबल बनाने का पेन भी यूज करने की जरूरत नहीं, इतना इजी था. So again I am saying कि those who were asking before the exam, और ये 2025 वालों के लिए भी है कि सर हमें पीएनसी पढ़ना है कि नहीं, प्रॉलिटी पढ़ना है कि नहीं, हमें ये सब चीज़ें पढ़ना है कि नहीं, क्योंकि मॉक्स में किसी मॉक्स में दूसरी जगह पे दिख जाता है। बट एक्चुअली में आज तक 2020 से जब से पेपर चेंज हुआ है तो मैथ्स का सिर्फ एक टॉपिक एक्चुअल पेपर में है, दैट इज मेंसुरेशन। अदरवाइज ईच एंड एवरी टाइम इवन इन 2023 they have asked percentage ratio average, that's it, basic.
Now let's have a look at this question. They have asked you electric cars, percentage of total electric cars, which we have calculated is 1470. So we are basically supposed to do a 1470 divided by 8000 here, total cars. Now here also we have options that are quite close. So how do we play smart? Let's just do it. So सबसे पहले तो zero side वाला काट दो, सबसे कोने वाला. अब हमारे पास बचा 800, right? So basically we are doing a 147 upon 8 division कर लो यहाँ पे,
क्योंकि
because दिमाग लगाने की जरूरत ही नहीं यहाँ पे, because numbers are easy to handle.
बहुत क्लोज है,
Numbers are easy to handle. अच्छा, anyways अगर suppose नहीं डिविजन भी नहीं करना है और तुम्हें कुछ हरकत ही करनी है इसमें, तो 800 का हमने 20% निकाल लिया, वो 160 आया. Just write down Abhishek, 20% of 800 is, this is all mentally, right? So this is coming to 160. हमें पहुंचना है 147. हमने 1% माइनस किया इसमें से, -1% किया, कितना हो गया 8. हमने 2% माइनस किया तो कितना हो जाएगा अभिषेक? 2%.
8 और माइनस कर दें,
एक और माइनस करेंगे, सो वील रीच 144. वी आर ऑब्जेक्टिव इज टू रीच 147. अब इसका मतलब क्या है? इसका मतलब है मेरा 19.37 ऑप्शन एलिमिनेट हो गया और 19.57 ऑप्शन एलिमिनेट हो गया. ठीक है, जो मेरा 140, अब हम लोग बीच की वैल्यू देखते हैं. हम लोग 160 से 8 माइनस हो चुके हैं, यानी 19% पे पहुंच चुके हैं. अब हमें 19% हम पहुंचे हुए हैं अभी 152 पे. 152 और दूसरा नंबर है मेरा 152 और दूसरा नंबर है मेरा 147. तो 3 नंबर्स है मेरे यहां पे. एक नंबर है 147. जो 147 है वो 5 कदम दूर है 152 से और 3 कदम पास है 144 से, यानी वो 18% के ज्यादा करीब है एज कंपेयर टू 19%. 147 जो है वो 5 स्टेप्स दूर है 152 से और ज्यादा करीब है 144 से, तो यानी वो 18% के पास होगा. तो मेरा आंसर हो गया 18.37. Again, we have not done any calculation here. We've just used percentage. So, इस question में हम division भी कर सकते थे to get the exact value,
Because
and we could have eliminated without doing any division also. But your thought process has to be like this. I mean, elimination without doing any calculation.
not for this exam, but in 2023 they have used the difficult numbers. In that exam, जो पिछले साल का पेपर हुआ था उसमें इस टाइप की जो कैलकुलेशन थी उसने बहुत हेल्प किया था लोगों के स्कोर को. 2-3 मार्क्स का जंप मिला था, पेपर टाइम कम था और वैल्यूज गंदी थी, तो वहाँ पे ये चीज़ें बहुत हेल्प करती हैं. तो दैट्स हाउ यू शुड प्रैक्टिस योर DI सेक्शन, योर मैथ्स सेक्शन, कि आने वाले टाइम में जो भी 2025 के स्टूडेंट्स हैं, नेक्स्ट ईयर के स्टूडेंट को मैथ्स इस तरीके से सीखनी है. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट इज
So compute the, what is the difference between number of petrol? No, this is just a subtraction question, so let's move on now. What is the average number of diesel cars in all the states? So what is the total number of diesel cars? 3450. We have to divide this by 4 and we'll get the answer. As simple as that. There's nothing much to be done in this question. So it's just a simple division that we need to do. So basically what we are doing here is 3450 is being divided by 4, यानी 3450 को 2 बार हम 2 से डिवाइड कर रहे हैं. So 3450 is an easy number. इसको एक बार डिवाइड करोगे तो हो जाएगा 1725 और 1725 को फिर से डिवाइड करोगे तो आ जाएगा 1725 को अगर हम फिर से डिवाइड करेंगे, so if you look at the value here, 83450 divided by 4, so it is double division of 2. Yes, it's a double division of 2. So we divide it by 2, we get 1725. Then we divide 1725 again by 2. So the only value that is going to come is 862.5. It can't be 912.5 because that will take it above 1800. It can't be 1810 here. 1810 का डबल जो हो जाएगा वो 1620 है. It can't be 1886 because I want 1725. 6 से मुझे कभी 1725 नहीं मिलेगा, आखिरी में 5 नहीं मिलेगा. यहाँ पे भी तुम एलिमिनेशन यूज कर सकते हो.
हाफ का हाफ करना है.
हाफ का हाफ करना है. All right. Thank you very much. And those of you who are scoring above 9, that's a brilliant score in this particular section. And anybody scoring above 6, that's very good. If you look at it, math section is generally the left out section. But in this CLAT paper, this is actually going to be one of the deciders. Why? Because English was very factual, so you can expect very high cutoffs there. Similarly, GK was relatively easy compared to last year. And critical reasoning section and the data interpretation section would be the deciding factor. So wish you all the very best.
Ready? So, welcome back everyone. We come to the last section for the day, which is the English section. We have saved the best for the last.
The most biggest confidence boosting section out of all the 5.
Yes, we think so too. The length of the passages were confidence boosting.
Yes, ma'am.
That question types were confidence boosting in this.
So, I think out of the 5 sections, this was close to a boon for all of you. It's a very nice starting point also. And if you guys have started from RC, I think it would have been a very, really nice experience.
Of course, 3 passages on literature, some of you might have seen and said, oh my God, this is literature. We have been reading a lot of editorials. But remember, in your mocks, there have been many mocks where you have done all passages or at least 4 on 5 passages on literature. So it's not something that you haven't been doing. In fact, if there are any 25 students here, we are very happy to be introducing the mocks to you as soon as February, and you will see some top heavy mocks with lots of literature, sometimes with lots of editorials, but a good read in most of the passages. Our favorite testing passage in many mocks is literary theory, analysis of literature. So there were 2 passages on that. And the best thing about this section is there are many of you who try to evade reading. So even if you did evade reading, this was a hunting passage, a hunting section. You could have seen the questions, gone back and searched the answers, especially with the passage which was on, the literature as a boon for the society with Sense and Sensibility and literature over the years wala passage.
One key thing to note for this section is I think there have been too many specific detailed questions. We call it direct questions also. And that's a really key departure from the previous RC sections, because again, we have been seeing so far that, RC has been gravitating towards inferential questions. But this time, I think, luckily for all of you also, like there has been too many specific detailed questions. And I think if you guys have been concentrating in our mocks, I think you would have had a very easy time in this. Because again, we have been always keeping a very fine balance between the narrative as well as the editorial-based passages, right?
Yes. But yes, we did have some mocks with a lot of literary theory and literature passages. Once I remember in one of the analysis, one student said you gave all the literature passages, no balance. But this is what we want to do. There are so many mocks that we give you. We give you about 45 new mocks and a lot of practice mocks. And sometimes in some of the mocks we go overboard only to help you change and adapt. Also, couple of vocabulary from the passage questions, easy, because all the options were pretty far and wide. So I think this section served as an equalizer. If you have even read barely, or even if you have gone back and hunted the question properly, you should have been able to get a lot of correct answers here based on your, based on your attempt rate.
Yeah, for sure.
So we are solving the set O. And the first passage here is Fire on the Mountain by Anita Desai. It's a lovely text. I would urge everyone, especially CLAT 2025 candidates, to read this it's a novella. It's not as big as a novel, and it's a little more than a short story. So it's a nice novella by Anita Desai. So I would request all of you to read it. It's a very, very poignant and heart-touching tale.
So first question, just starting off like, I think we can project it on the screen, that what does the protagonist's preference for barrenness and starkness suggest about her personality? So again, I think this was a fairly easy question. You guys just could have gotten back and, It was basically that the author was valuing a lot about simplicity and minimalism, and she was searching for a landscape which would be, looking barren in nature. So I think this was a pretty simplistic question, and I think the answer for this should
And
be B.
there is no option that was debatable here. The correct answer is option B.
I mean, even if you read the question, like preference for bareness and starkness, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? It had been a very easy for you, all of you, right? So nothing much to debate here. Question number 2, I think, what do you get to know about the protagonist's state of mind from her reaction towards the postman? So again, like we could have said throughout the passage, the author has definitely shown a preference for, quiet surroundings and just like that. So if she is being disturbed by something, she definitely would not
The
read.
answer is there right in the first paragraph.
Absolutely.
If you have read the first paragraph, and as I've said, even if you are, trying to avoid reading, many of you try to do, we still do not advocate it. But even if you did that, you could have gone back, searched for postman, and you would have got your answer, which is option B.
Yeah. She dislikes any disturbance and...
Sorry.
That's fine. She dislikes any disturbance or interruption in her solitude. There was a clear-cut preference for silence, which is getting violated. So, simple answer for this should be option B, right? Let's keep moving to the question number, the third question, which says, what does the protagonist desire to be mistaken for a pint reveal about her mindset?
Again in the first paragraph.
Yep. I think a simple one, the answer should be absolutely, it should be, tilting towards E, that she yearns to be one with nature and escapes from her human identity. So even if you guys are able to get a small notion of what the tone is and what the author wants, all the questions have been absolutely easy. Now this question is a bit funny because I think this is not present anywhere in the passage. And
so when we were solving it, I did not find it. I thought maybe, I'm tired, and I tried to look for it twice, thrice. Then we started chatting, and because none of us could find it, and then some of the students came to us and said, ma'am, we could not find this answer. Some of them claimed that they wasted precious a minute, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and everyone taking the CLAT knows the value of a minute. I think there are two kinds of people who know the value of a minute: those who are holding a plank and those who are preparing for test prep.
Absolutely.
So this was not anywhere. But the funny thing is, there was no problem marking this answer.
Yeah, you can get it from the tone. Like, it's pretty out
If you go with the tone and the central theme of the passage, you would have gotten the answer, C.
Yeah.
Because of the
Negative
noise or something that she is not looking at.
Also, one thing, if you guys have decided to leave this question, there is a very high probability that the question might get cancelled, I think, because,
Let's hope so, though in the last 3-4 years, reading sections are the sections that the CLAT consortium has been very, very, possessive about. They don't like to part with their answers. But what can we say? So, overall state of mind in Cariano. So, it was a simple one. You could have just looked at the statements and marked the answer.
I think it's just only statement 3.
It's only statement 3 because she was one with nature, so there was no anguish or restlessness.
And isolated and disconnected again is going
She
against
was one
the tone.
with her surroundings. She wanted to be one of the pine trees. She was very, very happy and content.
Yeah.
So it's a correct, D is the answer,
Correct
which again should have not taken more than 15-20 seconds for whoever attempted it properly.
And the sixth one talks about, in the light of the above passage, what role does nature play in the protagonist's life? So again, a very simple one. Everything is just matching the tone, guys. So again, I don't really see a very big issue here. It's obviously going to be option B, which is saying it offers a solace, peace, and a sense of belonging, directly mentioned in the passage as well, right? So
I think if any of you have started with English and RC in set O, first passage with the 6 questions should have been a great start, except for that one question which you couldn't find anywhere in the passage.
Yeah, for sure. I think the second passage was, again, this was the passage which was just like a paragraph long, I think, and the kids were a little bit confused also ki itna chota passage kaise aa gaya. But yeah, I mean, again, if you're able to read it, it's a pretty simplistic passage. So, I mean...
And covers an array of literature, covers an array of, the setting and the narrative.
Yeah.
So, lovely passage, though short, but very meaningful, talks about the setting, whether it's the desert in Jhumpa Lahiri's namesake, or it is God of Small Things and lush Kerala, or it is Macbeth, and the Scottish moors.
I
So,
think the best thing about this passage rather is that even if you would have a little bit of difficulty understanding the passage, the questions are absolutely direct
Yeah.
here. So I think that would be
the questions are direct, and I think one paragraph, you guys are used to reading literary narratives. You guys are used to, at least the CP guys are used to reading all of that. So, good read and very, very concise nature of questions. For example, what has been the relationship between character and setting? It is a direct question.
Yeah, from the first line
From
itself.
the first line of the
Nuanced
passage.
dance that shapes the character.
And you can easily eliminate. It's
Yeah.
non-existent. That goes against the theme of the passage, even if you have read the first 2 lines.
And interchangeable again is not matching the theme. Settings
Yes.
are insignificant is again going directly against the passage. So very simple answer. The answer should be B, that it is a complex interplay, which is again visible through the first line, nuanced dance, right? It's an easy one.
Of course, the next few questions are very, very easy. I don't
All
even
of them
know.
are specific detail, and you
Very,
guys would have been-
very simple ones. You just go to, as I said, if you are using a hunting approach, searching for answer, you go to Jhumpa Lahiri's namesake.
Yep.
And what does it symbolize? It definitely symbolizes the isolation and identity crisis as given in the
Next
passage.
line itself, yeah. So simple one again. Question number
After
9.
Jhumpa Lahiri, we go to
Scottish
Macbeth.
moors, the Macbeth, yeah.
Again, it's given in the last few lines. No points for guessing the right answer.
Eerie and foreboding setting. It's a direct, straight line to
Yes.
option C.
We are on the Scottish moors.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's definitely not this thing. It has no influence.
Option C, ma'am. It is
And
an ever-present
you have
omen.
option C here.
Yeah. Clearly evident from the foreboding wala word, right?
Interplay, simple meaning. So I think this was the lone meaning
uh,
question
yeah.
in the entire passage. So, and if you had difficulty in figuring out the meaning, options made it very clear.
Yeah.
Because it is not any lack of interaction. It is basically an relationship between word and the narrative and setting. It's not insignificant. It is
And
not a separation.
Yep.
The options had made it very clear for you to mark this answer.
So all of these are like the easiest passages, I think, among all of them.
Question 11. The setting of God of Small Things, the author has said, Kerala backwaters, lush, vibrant, and that's where it takes
So
you.
I think this passage is the easiest among the lot, because I think all the 6 questions were all directly answerable.
In fact,
so
the other one also, which
Yeah.
has the names of books and all, Sense
that
and
is
Sensibility,
even-
that is
Yeah.
also. I think between the two, they are vying for easiest specific detail answers.
Yep. What is the
So-
main theme discussed in the passage? And yeah, the whole passage was again talking about that how settings are as influential as anything else in shaping, how the story progresses. So it's a direct
And look at
question.
the options.
Yeah,
I mean, as if
everything
the
is-
question was difficult.
no role in character development. Everything is going against the tone, guys. Yeah. So it's a simple one.
Option C.
Yeah. This was the so-called lengthier passage where the questions were absolutely straightforward and direct.
In
right?
fact, this is the passage which probably we would use in class to teach you hunting approach.
Yeah.
Just search the proper noun, go back, read that line and mark your answers.
So, like, who is often regarded as the greatest playwright? This is
Sorry.
one question before. Yeah. Who is often regarded the greatest playwright in the history of English language? Just go back. It's directly written over there. It's going to be Shakespeare, right?
And I hope they did not confuse between William Wordsworth and William Shakespeare in the excitement.
Our students are better than that. I'm
Yeah.
sure they would have managed. Which of the Jane Austen's novel is known for its social commentary and witty portrayal of romance? Again, all of these.
I think there was no fight because
everything is directly mentioned.
very, very
So,
directly mentioned.
Then 15 again, who are the romantic poets mentioned in the passage known for celebrating nature and intense human emotions? Again, Wordsworth.
C.
Directly mentioned. Now this is again even like next level specific detail. It's like a school question. Like, what is the title of Virginia Woolf's novel known for its modernist narrative style?
And none of them are also by Virginia Woolf except one. So
simple
that's
one. Again, answer
simple
C.
C.
Yep.
I think given a choice, I would probably mark this as the easiest.
Yeah, I think.
Warning about the dangers of totalitarianism. There was only one book which was mentioned over there, which is
1984,
1984, option A.
Rest of them don't even match the theme. It's that easy. And 18, what does the passage highlight as the enduring power of the English literature? So again, throughout the theme, you could have seen that we were talking about giving so many examples just to show that the diversity was there. The simple answer directly should be option B, right?
Yeah.
Diversity of its authors, themes, and styles. Now, this is a slightly, I think among the four, this is one of the more better passages where it required a somewhat, understanding of the passage in order to answer the questions. So this was again talking about how...
So in this, I think there was a question on docket excluded. If I may talk about it. So this question required you to come back and check once the meaning of docket excluded. Also, you had to read, because it starts with middle class but actually goes on to the underprivileged at the poorest. So the main theme starts from paragraph 2. This is what you should have gauged, right? And also they gave you an example to talk about why the poorest are deprived of it. And finally, in the last paragraph, the idea that they talk about is the dispute between what benefits the poorest classes and what benefits the rich. So it's not as if the poor classes are docket excluded. The idea is that the ruling may have one effect on one class and the other effect on the other class. So whether it is, the taxi app, taxis through app-based this thing, or the taxi drivers that are the organic or the traditional ones. So the theme played a big role. So this is one sole passage. We had two passages straight away. One was the first passage, also not very tough, but here there was some concept, so you had to come back and read. And the flow of thoughts in the passages. It starts by talking about middle classes, but comes to the poorer classes, then shows the conflict between the justice delivered, how it impacts the poor class as well as the rich class, based on which side of the social circle or the class you are on.
Yep. It's basically about the difference in accessibility to justice for different classes of people, right? So 19 again, what is the central thesis of the above extract? And again, it is a pretty self-explanatory answer if you can just stick to the passage at all times, right? And the whole passage was talking about basically how justice is perceived by different sections of the society. So I think the answer should be B, that the imagination of justice for the rich and the poor is vastly different. Because again, accessibility ka ek main issue aa jata hai, right?
So from second paragraph it starts, but in the third paragraph the exact social, the exact main idea is brought about. And that's what we try to teach in the classes, that there's no specific place for main idea. It's not as if it's going to be there in para 1 or para last. Because there are some, very big YouTube channels that talk about it. It can be anywhere. You have to read and find out where is the author going with the text exactly.
Finding the author's opinion is paramount at all times in any sort of RC question, right? So, and also the other options for 19 are also pretty easy to eliminate.
Yes,
so we
and
could have
elimination was not the toughest take of this paper. So as I was talking about docket excluded,
I think we could just you can just go back and maybe we can see, right? Because it was basically talking about that the poor have no chance to access the justice system, and docket excluded again, basically when you're not able to access the justice system. So simple answer for that is going to be option A. Obviously, the poor do not have easy access to the justice system. It is directly more of a specific detailed questions actually.
Yeah, this is not mentioned anywhere, bail petitions and all. And they don't reject the judicial system.
They just
don't
can't
have access to it.
Absolutely.
So answer will be option A.
Yeah. 21, the only, I think, so-called tone question, which of the following words best describes the experience of different segments of people with the justice system as described in a third paragraph. So
again, not difficult when it comes to options.
Yeah.
Option C.
Option C, because again, there was a difference in terms of their accessibility. Now, again, which of the following statements is the author most likely to agree with? The basic inference question. Not a lot of difficulties should be here. Again, most likely to agree. To us hisab se we have to remember that the judicial system reflects the same power relationships as those which exist in the society. It's going a little bit broadish, I think. So we can't really say that. I think the answer, this would have been slightly confusing inside the examination. But I think B comes in terms of, because there was this whole aspect about access. So maybe that goes up and down. But maybe again, religion and caste ke upar, maybe they make
Yeah.
a little bit of a case for none of the above, right? So this was slightly like
Yeah,
And
so
he-
a contender would have been A, but the author is trying to talk about economic
Inequality,
status
yeah.
and inequality. So we stick to B.
But this is like potentially iffy, I would say.
Yeah.
It can go both ways.
One iffy question here. I think C can be easily eliminated over here. Though we do have none of the above, which always
making
does pose a threat
challenge, yeah.
when it comes to wording of the options. One can say that hopefully, the consortium will start wording options in a more discernible way to check actual knowledge rather than, leave ambiguity, because then, what happens is we are not sure what was ambiguous there, and training sort of suffers with that.
Yep.
But let's hope that this iffy answer becomes an easy choice between A and B.
Yeah, because I think inequality-wise, B hits it more on the mark. Right? Now, 23 was which of the following statements is the author most likely to disagree with? And like we had mentioned in the CR analysis, all of these kinds of things should be underlined, not or disagree or right. And we basically know that the accessibility to justice and law was different for different people.
Yeah.
So the simple answer, tone-wise, would be then option B, which says the law ensures the equality both in text and in practice, which is actually not true, because disagree ke hisab se it is not actually happening in practice, right? The poor are not able
The
to access.
passage is the opposite of
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. And
Of course, A is something the author is likely to agree with. C is pretty much written, right? All of the above gets cancelled because the author is trying to tell us how this is not happening.
the key point is to look at disagree, guys. We had to look at disagree, and then we would have gotten the answer, right?
And the last question,
What makes reform of judicial administration a neutral area? Like again, we know what neutral means. To us hisab se we can just easily arrive at the answer. Neutral means that basically when we are not focusing or we are not biasing a particular section of the people. So the answer for this should be C, that reforms to judicial administration do not favor one class of people over another. Pretty self-explanatory.
again, this is in sync with the central theme, as we started out by saying, if you had hit the central theme here, you could have gotten all of the answers correct.
Absolutely.
Remember, answers have to be in tune with the central idea of the passage.
For sure.
So coming to cutoffs now, children.
Yes, ma'am. I think cutoffs, I think as far as this question is concerned, this section is concerned, it was a pretty easy section, and we are projecting somewhere close to 19 or 20 plus, I think.
Yeah.
Not discounting your silly mistakes which might have happened. I think if you were able to score a 19 or a 20, it's good enough for top 3, I think.
Yeah. So, yes, definitely on the other side of 20 for the top 3, and 18, 19 marks still.
Yeah.
So there's no difference between top 3 and top 10.
The margin for gap, I think, in this is pretty low because, again, guys, the section, it's the most easiest out of all of the 5, right? So, again, at the very least, you guys should be scoring a 17 or an 18 in this, for sure.
Yeah, that's
Without,
true. Because unlike CR, which had a whole set of dubious questions, here, except for that one answer, which we still feel very strongly that B should be the correct answer, there is no dubiousness in answers here, straightforward answers. So definitely something on the other side of 20 is what will get you to top 3. And still 17, 18 should have been scored by most of you for
top 10.
For the top 10.
Yeah.
That will be all from the English section here.
Yeah.
And you guys have a great evening ahead, or whatever is left of it.
Get some
Thank you
sleep,
so
guys.
much.
There is one other exam approaching, all right? Thank you
Yeah.
so much, guys.
Okay.
Cheers.